guidelines and rules in the ANC. As you know, there's even the step-aside rule. So whoever gets charged formally, they know themselves that they have to step aside from whatever positions of responsibility that they occupy. So if the NPA is building a case against Minister Zizi Kodwa, we wait and see, because we have no way of being privy to that information and what they do. Our role and concern as an organization is always to ensure that there is fairness and just procedures followed here.
Good Party leader Patricia de Lille says her party believes that South Africans are urgently seeking practical solutions to the country's economic woes, and that is exactly what her party is promising. De Lille says it is crucial to engage directly with the people at community level to understand their grievances. She was speaking during a SAFM election debate in the Northern Cape ahead of the elections on May 29th.
We don't belong to that choir that says nothing has changed in our country for the past 30 years, because it's a lie. But we do believe that we could have done much better in the past 30 years. And as I'm traveling around here in the Northern Cape, I see the towns are littered with posters. People can't talk to a poster. They must come like I have done here in the Good Party, where we're engaging directly with our people. So our manifesto is a recipe to rebalance society. It's no fuss, no empty promises, just solutions and implementation.
A Gauteng traffic officer has been shot and killed at his home in Eersterust near Hammanskraal, north of Pretoria. It is alleged that the 44-year-old officer had been watching a soccer match when he decided to visit the outside bathroom. He was allegedly approached by two men who fired shots at the man, killing him instantly. Gauteng Traffic Police spokesperson Sello Maremane says a case of murder has been opened and no arrests have been made as yet.
Gauteng Traffic Police, together with other law enforcement agencies, will work around the clock to ensure that these ruthless criminals are apprehended to face the full might of the law. It is highly regrettable that one of our wardens, who was employed to prevent and combat crime, had to lose his life in the hands of these merciless criminals. We would like to appeal to members of the public who might have information about these incidents to report the suspect to the police station. We would also like to pass our deepest condolences to the bereaved family members.
The state has concluded its closing arguments in the bail application of the 5 men accused of the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and his friend Tebello Motswane at the Durban Magistrates Court. State Prosecutor Lawrence Xaba has told the court that if one considered how the killings unfolded last year, they can come to the conclusion that it was the work of hitmen. Judgment in the bail matter is expected in 2 weeks. A further 2 suspects are in custody in Eswatini, awaiting an extradition application. And the International Criminal Court has broken its silence amid speculation that it may issue an arrest warrant against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The ICC's Office of the Prosecutor says it is aware of the significant public interest in its investigations. Kaelihle Khumalo has more.
The International Criminal Court says its always seeks to engage constructively with all its stakeholders. However, when individuals threaten to retaliate against the court in fulfillment of its mandates, make decisions about investigations or cases falling within its jurisdiction, such threats, even when not acted upon, constitute offense against administration of justice under Article 70 of the Rome Statute. The ICC has been under immense pressure to act in atrocities committed in Gaza, but Israeli government has fought back, saying it's got a right for self-defense against Hamas in Gaza. Kaelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Kempton Park.
The top story at 3 o'clock, former ANC Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe says the party's rules, including the step-aside rule, may be triggered as Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa could face money laundering charges. For SAFM News, Coming
up in your sports, the Sour Bliss Box power past Spain and Singapore opener, and City's Foden and Shaw win Footballers Writers Association's Footballer of the Year awards. More details at 3:30.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
Mama Kiti, I heard Rand Water talking on the radio about how dangerous it is for people to encroach on their pipeline servitude.
Yes, those high-pressure Rand Water pipelines are under the ground distributing megalitres of water. When people build on top of the pipeline, Rand Water is unable to conduct maintenance on the pipeline, which has a negative impact on water provision. Pipelines can burst without warning. People could get seriously injured or worse.
Yes, people can die from a bursting pipe. That is why people need to understand that Rand Water servitude is where a Rand Water pipeline is located. If we build our houses or businesses on a Rand Water servitude, then we are encroaching on that servitude. They say if communities want to know whether they've encroached over servitudes, they should look for the Rand Water beacons.
The beacons indicate the presence of Rand Water pipelines under the ground. They're rectangular, made of concrete, are painted either white or blue, and have the Rand Water logo on them.
Let's take a walk around our area to see if there are any Rand Water beacons so that we can also tell the neighbors.
Rand Water, celebrating 120 years of existence and still finding new ways to provide clean, portable bulk water.
And we would buy 500 cars, and we would buy 500 more. So sell your car for the best price, and we won't think about it twice. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da-da. We buy cars, we buy cars. Da-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-dun-da-da-da.
We Buy Cars, the easiest way to sell your car by far.
The debate of universities will be witnessed on the field of play. The varsity derby between Amatax ladies and UJ ladies. Who are the most intelligent students? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the queens of the beautiful game. University of Pretoria ladies versus University of Johannesburg ladies on Sunday 5 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
And a warm welcome to the National Pulse. I guess that like you and me both had a sense of the feel of the National Pulse and what is it that you're feeling right now about all things South Africa. If you have an opinion, and I know it's a broad question, if you have an opinion about what is getting your pulses racing with regard to the National Pulse, let me know, whatever it may be, okay? And, you know, what you think could be very different to somebody else, right? So with that in mind, you can connect with me, WhatsApp, voice notes, or text 0614104107, and you can call into 086 000 2032. Pretty simple, right? What is it that gets you connecting to the feel of the National Pulse right now? What is it, right? You can also, if you are tweeting on the X platform, SFM Radio, and also on our Facebook page, use that hashtag that we use often, the National Pulse. And there's lots to talk about. We'll be pretty shortly looking into the story about Zizi Kodwa and again, comments or suggestions that he may well be charged by the NPA. We'll talk about that pretty shortly. Today is World Press Freedom Day, so we'll talk about that and what that really means, not just in South Africa, but of course around the world. Later on, we'll chat to Donna Katzen. She won a presidential award over the weekend, a few days ago, in fact, for her work at Shared Interest and what that really means. And then after 5 o'clock, Fasir Hassan is my guest as part of that feature that we have on a Friday called the Fireside Chat. And I'll tell you what is it, the topic that she wants to bring up. Maybe you can guess, but we'll talk about it later on. Let's get to first things first and the issue of Zizi Kodwa. Now, there's been a piece in the Mail and Guardian that the National Prosecuting Authority now have encouraged prosecutors and investigators to go after state capture cases, and in particular, we're talking about Zizi Kodwa facing a 1.6 million rand bribe charge, right? So let's find out more about what that really means and the implications thereof with Mpumelelo, who is on the line, Mpumelelo Bon Nyoka, who's an attorney and legal analyst. Good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
Good afternoon, Ashraf, and belated welcome to SAFM.
Well, and belatedly, you and I are talking, so I'm glad that we're doing it today anyway. Good to connect with you again, absolutely,
Thank
right?
you, listeners as well, yeah.
Thank you. So first things first, I mean, what do you make of that headline story from the Mail and Guardian that, in fact, there's now a push, and the next man is, from the NPA position, would be Zizi Kodwa?
Yeah, okay. First of all, Section 9 of the Constitution is clear that people in the same category, like who are suspected of having committed offences, the Act of the Constitution, Section 9, says that everyone deserves to be treated equally and deserves protection of the law equally. So even if it was a sweeper suspected of having committed an alleged offence, or Mr. Kodwa, who is a minister of sport, is suspected of having committed bribery, money laundering, they are supposed to be investigated and then later charged. So I'm making no distinction as such, but for public perception, the public feels that there was a high-profile state commission which cost millions of rands, but nothing came out of that. But the prosecution of such cases is something different. They must acquire admissible evidence against someone, investigate and have witnesses, and then they can proceed criminally. So the fact that it has taken time is no negative thing towards the NPA. They have to investigate, especially as they say it was a loan from someone. It is the burden of the state to prove the case of bribery or money laundering beyond reasonable doubt. Beyond reasonable doubt, all that an accuser to say is to advance a reasonable explanation that is acceptable. So it's a tricky one. We're talking about someone who still has to be charged, not yet charged.
Fair enough, yeah.
So they have to tread with caution with all people are equally. When they have stolen a banana outside, being seen stealing that banana, going to court, or a very hidden one, a covert one like money laundering, they have to treat it separately. All I can say is that the public is rushing for optics. We must see arrest. And then when the NPA gets a case struck off the roll, they get to be criticized. There's a Chinese proverb that says, measure 1,000 times and cut once. So it is prudent for the NPA to take its time and investigate, despite public pressure to prosecute, rather than botching a case by having struck off the roll and then still be criticized. That's what I can make about that.
I think the point you make is a good point. Now, I mean, just to get clarity on the Zizi Kodwa case, I mean, the accusation relates to, money laundering and bribing, where he's supposed to have received a 1.6 million rand loan to buy a car. Yeah. But the link with that is then the EOH holdings. They've been recipients of really great deals, and he's been a part of that. Now, fine, you're quite right in saying, if he gets charged, he'll get a day in court. He hasn't been charged, so we can't really say. Having said all of that, right, taking your point about the Chinese proverb of, measuring 100 times and cutting once, I understand 1,000 times. I mean, is there a case to say that the NPA, all things considered, have been rather too slow, and that has actually waned public confidence in their role following up from the Zondo Commission?
You must understand that the evidence that they have to have for a criminal case has to be admissible evidence, and willing witnesses or documentary evidence that's going to be admissible. That is the first point. Either orally, through witnesses, or through documents. They have to investigate that cautious, because one step wrong, they'll be sued for malicious prosecution. They have to be cautious regarding anyone. If, however, the perception is correct that they are selecting or favoring people and not charging others, then that would be a gross dereliction of duty, because the NPA Act is clear that the NPA has to act without fear, favor, or prejudice against anyone.
So your point, the point that you made earlier, that even if you are mentioned in the Zondo Commission findings, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're guilty, and it doesn't mean that you are charged or you will be charged, right? But then if it's none of those of the above, then what does it mean? If you get mentioned in the Zondo Commission under the banner of state capture, then what does it mean?
The principle of law is that there is no compulsory prosecution in South Africa. You see, firstly, there must be a prima facie case and a probable chance of success. So they must have the evidence and decide whether to charge. You may still charge a person but still not succeed later on. So the NPA wants to charge and ensure that it succeeds in charging anyone, not only for the optics of public perception. That, I think, is a matured and prudent approach. So whatever was said there does not necessarily mean it's a criminal offense, or because they must prove beyond reasonable doubt that a crime that they preferred, whether it's bribery or money laundering, has been proved.
I've also noted that despite the Mail and Guardian article suggesting that Zizi Kodwa was next, right? Henry Motame, the spokesperson for the investigating directorate that's part of the NPA, he's saying at this point in time, we do not have, and this is, I'm quoting him directly, we do not have this case before us. So I mean, that's closer to your point. And in fact, he hasn't yet been charged.
Yeah, it's premature to say a person is going to be charged when he has not even, there's no basis for that. Now, it offends the Section 10 of the Constitution. Every person's got the right to human dignity and to privacy as such. He has not been charged. Once he's charged, then it kicks in the presumption of innocence until he's proven guilty. For now, it's speculation to sell the newspaper on Friday. There could be charges. What if he's not charged? We understand then the public is going to blame the NPA. They're dragging your feet. We heard about this on Friday, but it's more than a week because of sensationalism. That is wrong.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, there's a message from a listener, TG, regular listener to the show, saying, Ashraf, it is dangerous for the NPA to conduct its job through the media, and I think the newspaper reports about this must be investigated, and the head of the NPA must act against people who are giving information to the media, and if the minister is guilty, let them investigate. I mean, do you think that's the case, that the NPA is in fact playing its investigations through the media, deliberately, intentionally so?
If there is no denunciation of the report by the Mail and Guardian, then we need to lend credence to that. If they don't distance themselves to say we don't know anything about that, we're still investigating, they need to lend credence to that. It's possible, reasonably possible, that someone leaked it to the Mail and Guardian, that something like this is going to happen. You know, it's not holy cows in the NPA. It's possible. Let's wait to see whether they're going to distance themselves from an imminent charge against the minister. If a person has not been charged, you've got the right to privacy and dignity. That must be respected. So either charge or keep quiet.
How should, from a legal perspective, then how should Zizi Kodwa respond to this today?
He should not do anything. He says, just say, look, I do not know anything. I've not been charged about anything. If there are possible charges, I will entertain that as it comes. Right now, it's an infringement of my right to privacy. You see, no one should be going around and say so-and-so is going to be charged. Charge or keep quiet.
Charge or keep quiet. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. Thank you for your time, Pumulelo Bond, New York. Hopefully we'll have many further chats down the line. Yeah?
A legal avenue called an edict of perpetual silence. If someone is threatening to say, I'm going to charge you, but nothing happens, you can apply to court and say, either you charge or keep quiet. It's an edict of perpetual silence.
Okay.
You can adopt that. Thank you.
Got that. Point made. Pumulelo Bon Nyoka, thank you for your time. There you are. That's his perspective. In fact, what he's suggesting, that Zizi Kodwa was not being charged. It's very premature. He should just keep quiet and say, just hang low because I've not been charged. Okay. But the point that TG is suggesting, in fact, that he's suggesting that it's being a story being planted by the NPA before the charge through a newspaper, through leaks, right? What do you make of all of that? Central to that is what is Zizi Kodwa's position, and then, of course, is linked to the ruling party, and there's an election coming up in a few weeks' time, and what impact does that have on them? If anything is going to happen, because the NPA is saying is not yet charged, if anything happens before the election, that's one thing. There's the step-aside rule the ANC is a part of. If it happens after the election, even then, what would the ANC do at that point in time? Lots of things to emerge from that, and therefore, what do you make of that story? And maybe read up the full story in the Mail and Guardian, and then give me your thoughts on that. 0614 104 107. That's voice notes or text via WhatsApp, and then you can also call in live right away. 086 000 2032. 086 000 2032. And incidentally, today is World Press Freedom Day. We talk about that next.
Come test drive the new Ford Territory, the family SUV with a 1.8-litre EcoBoost engine that is both powerful and fuel efficient. Get yours at launch prices from only 590,000 Rand, including an optional service plan for a limited time only. Get to your nearest Ford dealer and test drive the new Ford Territory today. T&Cs apply.
Be part of the 17th Annual SA Sport Awards under the theme Celebrating 30 Years of Freedom Through Sporting Excellence, with great prizes to be won every week. All you have to do is SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 32020 to vote for your favorite People's Choice Nominee of the Year. SMS is charged at R1.50. Free SMSs do not apply. The nominees are A. Ivan Etzebeth, B. Garda Steyn, C. Siamtanda Siya Kolisi, D. Percy Tau, E. Kirsten Neuschafer. SMS A, B, C, D, or E to 32020. Voting line closes at 9 p.m. on the 5th of May 2024. T's and C's apply. For more information, visit dsac.gov.za. Catch the SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 5th of May on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 at 7:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the SA Sport Awards. Hashtag Isinjasa Game. Hashtag SASA 17th edition.
Top Sport.
The Netball South Africa CEO Mudiagit Komane, Coach Jenny was saying that she was developed in the Telkom Netball League. How is that development going for the coaches?
It is going extremely well. I can tell you, like I say, it's very tough. I mean, just now you had the Northwest Fireballs playing your Jack Jaguars, you know, and I can tell you when you look at both coaches, they're advanced on their own. You know, it's quite challenging. You've got the Kainams as well that's leading the lock right now. That's very tight with 5 Star Proteins players. It's quite exciting because even the coaches on their own advanced, they're high in terms of level. You know, there's different levels when it comes to coaching.
Top Sport on SAFM.
And we have an anonymous comment saying after Zizi Kodwa is charged, then we will wait for Gwedi Mantashe to be charged. But as far as my understanding, the NPA will not be able to successfully prosecute because they don't know what they're doing. They're just reading the Zondo report and charge without any evidence, like in the case of Ace Magashule, who we had as a guest yesterday, by the way. And you can listen to the podcast of that conversation with Ace Magashule. But in the meantime, listen to this. Attorney Yunus Mohammed was detained and held in solitary confinement, but it didn't stop him fighting apartheid. In the mid-1980s, he was a founder of the United Democratic Front and helped to defend the 22 activists charged in the Delmas treason trial. On May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honor Mohammed's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. Hashtag Remember Me.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
So it's interesting in the light of the conversation we had earlier in quoting the Mail and Guardian. Today is World Press Freedom Day, and my guest to talk about that is Reggie Mwalusi, the SENEF Executive Director. Reggie, good chatting to you. You're live with the National Pulse.
Ashraf, good afternoon to you and good afternoon to your listeners.
Much appreciated. On a very important day that we talk, of course, right? So first things first, World Press Freedom Day. How important is it? And is it a day that was selected as a special day to coincide with a special moment in world history? I'm thinking about, media freedom in South Africa that links to the banning of the, was it the Sowetan, the Post at the time, right?
Yeah. So you are, in our case here, you're referring to Black Wednesday in South Africa, that's in October. You're referring to 19 October 1977 when newspapers, journalists, and several black consciousness movements were banned. So World Press Freedom Day is really emanating from what we call the Namibia Declaration, when UNESCO declared today World Press Freedom Day. So what UNESCO does...
All right, Reggie, we're just going to reconnect with you. Your line's not very clear, and we want to hear everything you have to say. So let's just pause for that, and we'll get you back in just a moment. In the meantime, further comments. People are commenting. Madonna saying, Nomvula, Mama Action, and Tata Mantashe, thou art a tiger, quoting them, not my words, remain on the loose. Remember former Lindela financial officers' reports. So just think they're on the loose, right? Okay, I think we should be okay now with Reggie Mwalusi. Reggie, you're there, right?
Ashraf?
Okay, yes. So we were talking about the importance of World Press Freedom Day. I mean, how significant a day is it?
It's a significant day, Ashraf, particularly with what's happening today in the world, with what's happening in the media space. As you may know, the media is facing quite a number of challenges, from sustainability, from the lack of investment. We are losing journalists here in South Africa due to job losses. Around the world, as you may have seen in Gaza, journalists are getting killed, and we appreciate UNESCO, dedicating today to those journalists. We know in Russia, Ukraine, journalists also have perished there. So it's an important day. It's a day that reminds the global community that yes, the journalists have a job to do, and they do quite a significant amount of work. For any constitutional democracy to thrive, we need journalists.
And I've noticed that SANAF, right, which obviously has a specific focus in South or Southern Africa, you've made a point this year by highlighting the plight of journalists with regard to their safety, particularly those many journalists who've been killed in Gaza and in Greater Palestine.
Yes, indeed, and we have done it. I think several statements we have pointed out to those journalists who've been killed in the ongoing Israel-Palestine war, and it's unfortunate that we have lost so many journalists. And our hearts are with their families, with our colleagues from there, and I think they know that organizations across the globe are behind them with regards to the work that they do there, and they have a story to tell. That story is an important story, and for them to get killed is quite unfortunate.
What are you hoping for by highlighting their plight today? Because it's not just you. I mean, there are organizations around the world doing the same thing, right?
Yes, indeed. I mean, that we appreciate. And what we further appreciate is that UNESCO has noticed. UNESCO has said, look, on this day, as we have seen World Press Freedom Day around, the environment and looking after the environment, that's important. That's what journalists should do. And we should always, try to report about the environment and whatever not. But here are journalists, just over 100 journalists killed. And we as the global community, as journalists around the world, we say, we are in solidarity with them. Our hearts are with them. We say, as organizations like Reporters Without Borders, who release, their annual index on World Press Freedom around the world. So they take note of what's happening, and they say this is the worst scenario ever possible.
You mentioned in your opening lines that the media itself is under threat, the threat because of job losses, shrinking revenues and difficult sustainability, which actually means that the truth effectively is under threat, right? How do you intend to combat that?
Look, Ashraf, we, as SANAF here, that's what's giving us sleepless nights. To say 15 years ago, South Africa had about, 15,000 journalists? And today we are at less than 4,500 journalists. So that should indicate to you that we are in trouble. That should indicate to you that something needs to be done. As an organization, we say what we need here, we need to have a sustainability conservation. Journalism needs to sustain itself. Journalism needs to be funded. But as the media, we cannot just sit idle and keep on saying journalists to be funded to as we are.
Is it, and let's wrap up with this, is it not a fair comment to say one of the biggest threats for journalists has been the rise of citizen journalists who amplify their points of view, correct or fake, through social media?
Absolutely. So as we talk about journalism sustainability, we also have to have the conversation about disinformation, which is one of the rising problems here in South Africa, that we have a disinformation problem. Citizen journalism is awesome when it's citizen journalism and it's done by people who care a lot and who wants to tell real facts and real stories out there. But there's been an exploitation of citizen journalism, particularly when it comes to misinformation and disinformation, when it comes to, running certain untruths or propaganda so that people can achieve whatever that they want to achieve. So that's one of the challenges, not only faced by us here in South Africa, but globally.
Absolutely. That's where I'm going to leave you. The question is, how do you respond to that challenge? I'll leave you to think about that on World Press Freedom Day. Reggie Mwalusi. In fact, I'll get all of you to think about it. He's the executive director of SENAF. But you, as the audience, how valuable is the media to you, and how do we safeguard and protect the incredibly important role that the media plays? I'll take your calls on that issue, 086 000 2032. Otherwise, WhatsApp voice or text messages too. Let's get the news headlines now with Madubi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Garda. In your headlines this hour, the Health Products Regulatory Authority says it is developing a plan to force pharmacies and others to digitally record the IDs of people who've been given codeine, which is used as pain relief medicines and cough mixtures. Former ANC Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe says the party's rules, including the step-aside rule, may be triggered as Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa could face money laundering charges. And the U.S. Secretary of State Lloyd Austin has confirmed that Russian troops are now operating at an air base in Niger that is hosting U.S. military personnel. Details of these and other stories coming up at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
The backlog of traffic on Joburg's Mike 1 going north. If you're moving up through Sandton en route to Buccleuch interchange, the collision scene before you get to Woodmead Drive, and the backlog of traffic, it's pretty heavy. It's all the way back through Sandton, back through Melrose, and touching back towards Glenhove Road. So Glenhove to Woodmead, an absolute car park heading north this afternoon. Bit of pressure on the R24 from Edenvale as you line up to get onto the M12 for a slow trip into Galuli's interchange. If you're leaving Pretoria, reminder roadworks at Clayville, backlogging traffic going south towards Kempton Park, and importantly going towards those flight connections to the airport. And motorists leaving the airport, there's a big backlog of traffic between Atlas Road and the Benoni off-ramp. There's roadworks on your way up towards Pretoria as well. We warned this morning that the tanker crash up between Bergville and Tugela Plaza on the N3 driving to Joburg will take some time to clear. Both lanes remain blocked. Decantation of the paraffin underway. There's thousands of litres still to be moved from one vehicle to another, and it's a big queue. It queues from the Bergville exit all the way through to the crash in. If you are driving a car, not a truck, if you're driving a car, you could get out through Bergville and take Olivier's Hook Pass as the alternative. No major complaints from that route today. No trucks permitted on that route, certainly not suitable for them, and it'll just mess things up. So trucking industry, just prepare for a big wait to get through that scene. Approaching Tugela Plaza. Durban side, the N2 looking fairly heavy, getting up through Spaghetti Junction on the northbound track. And if you're coming out of Cape Town today, it was a fairly quiet Friday morning driving to work. It's not too bad as you turn around and come out of the CBD. A little bit of pressure on the N7 though. Jakes Curville slow moving through Goodwood. Queues down towards Ford Trekker Road. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Right, to me, I know you promoted the Springbok Sevens in your 4 o'clock headlines.
Yeah, great day in the office for our Sevens team, both men and women. The Blitzboks made an excellent start to the Singapore Sevens by beating Spain in their opening fixture today. The Springbok Sevens claimed a 31-7 win, which consisted of 5 tries. The Blitzboks are next in action against Samoa, and that's at 1:18. Now, in the meantime, the Springboks women's Sevens team scored one of their biggest upsets in their short history on the HSBC World Sevens Series circuit today, beating powerhouse USA 14-12 with the last play of the game. The USA are considered one of the top 4 sides on the circuit, and the Blitzboks women's team victory was nothing short of groundbreaking. Now, the victory was engineered by the last play of the game, with the Blitzboks 5 points behind, but a powerful scrum and an exceptional handoff by Simamkele Number with her standout scrum scrum have brought matters to level. In football, after watching his team record their heaviest loss in the DStv Premiership era, losing 5-1 to Mamelodi Sundowns, Kaizer Chiefs interim coach Kevin Johnson says that his tenure on this hot seat has been full of ups and downs. This was an 8th loss in 18 matches in all competitions for Johnson at Chiefs since he took over in October last year. The 65-year-old admits that it's been a very tough journey.
Up and down. It's been difficult, and it's been nice as well. It's been a learning curve, and we learn from these mistakes, and you learn from the wins as well. That there's certain things that when you do it, you have to remember, and there's certain things when you do it that you have to forget as a coach. But you gotta learn. We learn every day, and I hope I am one of those human beings that is able to learn every day of my life. And when you receive the scoreline that you received tonight, then you probably learn the most. And if you're humble enough, say, guys, I was beaten today, then so be it. But you got to come back stronger.
I did say Chiefs let me rephrase. Kaizer Chiefs, Man United, same difference. Listening to the coach, Johnson, now, and listening to ETH, same difference. Okay.
Well, it's quite unfortunate that he's got a lot of experience, but then again, yesterday I did say that Kaizer Chiefs head coach is the most hardest job in the whole wide world.
Well, therefore my connection with Man United.
Then elsewhere, Manchester City midfielder Phil Foden has been named the Football Writers Association's Men's Player of the Year, while City forward Kadaji Bunny Shaw won the Women's Award. Foden, who has scored 24 goals in all competitions this season, won 42% of the vote. City won both awards for the second time in 5 years, with Jamaica international Shaw taking the Women's Award of the season, in which she became the club's all-time leading scorer. Finally, in Cricket South Africa have revealed their national schedule for the 2024-25 international home season. And the big takeaway is that there are just 3 more test matches this year for the Proteas men's side. The international summer kicks off in August with the South Africa A tour against Sri Lanka A, which consists of 3 50-over matches and 2 4-day games. After June's T20 World Cup, the Proteas will take on Sri Lanka in 2 tests and then host an all-format tour against Pakistan over the festive season. Then the Pink Day ODI has been marked for the 22nd of December at the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg. Ending things off with women in sports. Very interesting. England women have been using artificial intelligence to help with team selection in a move that reportedly could help shape the future of the female game. According to England head coach John Lewis, he says that he uses this technology to help with decisions that he makes about squad makeup, team balance, and in-game matchups. So basically, with the technology, he's able to run simulated teams versus the simulated oppositions to give him an idea about how those teams may match up against each other. And he says, since using AI, it has actually helped him and his team do well overall. With that said, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumin Kapele.
Okay, see you then.
So, a lady from Air Officini just turned 55, and although I'm still a spring chicken, there's a part of me that envies her, especially since she now qualifies for a Nedbank Electronic Optimum Plus account with capital guaranteed. Talk about foamy, huh, voice man?
If you mean FOMO, then definitely boss man. And she can earn up to 12.85% interest. Anyone over 55 can open theirs via the Nedbank Money app in less than 2 minutes. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Hello, Your Choice Hotline.
Hi, I need you to help me make a choice.
Well, with Ford, you get to make your own choices. Like on brand new Ford Ranger XL, XLT, or Wildtrak Supercabs from only $7,999 per month with no deposit needed. There's a flexible deal for every Supercab at your nearest Ford dealership today. Your Ford, your choice. T&Cs apply.
The University Registrar and Secretary to Convocation, Dr. Joel Baloy, cordially invites all members of the University of Venda Convocation to attend the AGM on Saturday, 11 May 2024 in Polokwane, Merupa Hotel at 10:30. The AGM will consider the Vice-Chancellor State of Campus Report, the President of Convocation Report, and amendments to the Constitution of the Convocation. To RSVP and confirm attendance, please visit www.univen.ac.za/announcements or contact Mr. Mashuda Ramarebo on 060-906-1902.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's pick out. We'll chat to Donna Katzen in a moment. Before we get to her, the ANC and the elections central to everybody's minds.
Ashraf, good day, you and your team there, and a wonderful listeners. Always a wonderful show to listen to SAFM. Listen, man, on the issue of Zizi Godwa, the ANC is very much clever on playing the other things, like they know that if they send many people, many comrades home on their step-aside rule, they will tend to lose more. So now they want to keep everyone to go to the elections, and then when we come back, as we know, Cyril is there, and then is there to deliver what he has promised. He's going to arrest many of them, and by then it will be too late for them to revolt. So let's wait and see. Thank you very much, Ali from Polokwane. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Ali. Appreciate your feedback, and I'm glad that you are tuned in, connected to the show, and connected to all things SAFM. Are you right? That's the question we don't know. We'll have to find out, isn't it, and see what comes through afterwards. Let's, however, move on to other issues. I'll play further voice notes just now. Let's talk to Donna Katzen, who's the founder of Shared Interest. Donna, good chatting to you. You're live on the National Pulse.
And to you, thanks so much for hosting this conversation. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Now, two things that I think you need to know. One is I understand you've won a presidential award for your work at Shared Interest. Number two, I have had the privilege of moderating one of the Shared Interest sessions a good few years ago here in South Africa, so I certainly know what you're up to and what you're trying to do. Okay. Having said that, the fact that you've got presidential acknowledgement is certainly something, and I'm going to leave it to you to tell us why.
Well, it's overwhelmingly moving for me, first of all, to have received the recognition, but particularly to be associated with the companions, the Order of the Companions of O.R. Tambo, because the international solidarity movement that he launched and led has been so transformative, not only to struggles for racial and economic justice in South Africa, but also around the world and in our country as well. And we understand that this solidarity is critical, not only for us here and now, but for generations to come, and that it will continue to be based on our shared interests.
Help us understand what is shared interest.
A bit of history. In 1994, when Madiba was elected, people in the United States who had worked to apply economic pressures for peaceful change, working with the South African Council of Churches and the liberation movements and the trade union movements, began to realize that the new South Africa was going to also need economic strength from abroad, but not so much to pull away support, but in fact to leverage South Africa's own dramatic resources to help build a new society. And at the time we were setting up, Archbishop Tutu said to us, the end of apartheid was part one of the struggle, but actually the harder part is part two, and that is to make the miracle endure. He said, we asked you to disinvest, and now we say to you, invest, make South Africa succeed for the sake of the world. And so we took him literally, and we established a fund where people in the United States, individuals, churches, pension funds, trade unions, and so forth, invest. And these funds are used not to send to South Africa, but to partner with financial institutions and communities so that those financial institutions, think big banks, will make loans to the majority of people in the country for small businesses, associations, cooperatives, affordable housing, things and people that they would not ever consider creditworthy. what we do is we help the banks develop the confidence and the capacity to make these loans, and we work with communities to make sure that they have the skills and the background and also the confidence to be able to work with banks. It was in the beginning people said to us, "You want us to go to the bank for a loan?" And it was as though we had said, "Shall we go visit God and talk to him about the weather?" It was just not seen as possible. But that's how it got started. We're doing it, and since then we have benefited more than 2.3 million low-income Black South Africans, mobilizing $131 million in loans, and 100% of our investors have gotten back 100% of their money in full and on time, showing that the communities we work with are in fact good business and excellent partners.
How is that? I mean, that's admirable, and we need more of the same, right? How has that changed the South African economic or startup landscape?
Well, it's still a work in progress after 30 years, and South Africans will recognize that many things are still a work in progress. But we have been part of the process of beginning to influence banks. Just yesterday, I was visiting one of our projects in Western Cape, and the organization that we work with is called LEAD, L-E-A-D, and they are helping people in townships turn their backyard shacks and their small pieces of land into affordable housing, safe, quality, affordable housing for young people, people who need rental stock, which is so scarce in the country and certainly in this area. And they are becoming tremendously successful. The women primarily who the homeowners and become the owners of the new homes develop not only a source of rental income, but ultimately own the property. And they are providing housing for young people in the township who are looking for housing that otherwise they wouldn't be able to afford, housing that is not a shack. And one of these women said to me yesterday, I now feel comfortable that when time comes for me to go to heaven, I will have something to leave to my children, my legacy.
I would think, the thing with receiving awards, especially presidential awards of the type that you have, right, not only is it a big thank you and a big acknowledgement, it really forces you to do even more, right? So, and I don't have to tell you this, there are huge gains in our country, but there are huge problems and there are massive shortcomings across the board in terms of the inequality problem. How then do you take this award and use that award as a further galvanizing force to narrow that gap between the extremely wealthy and extreme poverty that exists in our country?
Yes, well, it's actually an important tool, we hope, to leverage support on both sides of the ocean. So in the United States right now, which is quite wrapped up with its own political situation and the issues that are common to both countries, South Africa is not so much on the front page as it was during the anti-apartheid movement. And so we're hoping that this will begin to re-interest people, any kind of news hook that enables us to tell the story, to continue to show that after 30 years of democracy, political freedom without economic freedom is still not complete freedom. Mandela would have said that as well. And so to continue the interest in the work on our side and to excite people in South Africa's society and transformation, what has been done and what remains to be done. And also within South Africa, as we increase the support, we're able to work with more financial institutions, more communities. And hopefully we're beginning to see a bit of a turning point in many of the areas that we work in. The project that I was describing, we visited yesterday, a number of the women who were there, the new homeowners, said, it's very interesting. She said, for the first time, we have banks coming interested in our work. They were never interested before. And for us, this took longer than we thought. South Africa, like most countries, did not flip a switch. But it is a process of ongoing development of trust and capacity and ongoing community organization and action.
Well,
that
fabulous
make the project.
fabulous what you've done, and fabulous what Shared Interest has done. I certainly would take a greater interest in Shared Interest, and I'm going to suggest everybody else does the same. And long may that connection of building up businesses in our country and building champion businesses continue, Donna. So much appreciated. For now, I mean, that presidential award is something to be celebrated. So, wow to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and we hope that these issues interest people as a matter of shared interest in this and other countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Donna Katzen, the founder of Shared Interest, receiving a presidential order a few days ago, in fact, for her tremendous work in providing access to loans for black-owned businesses on a mega scale. But even more needs to be done. Well, what about the Road Accident Fund and their funds? We'll talk about that in a moment.
The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, let's talk about something I think is particularly important, the issue of the Road Accident Fund, a backlog around the Road Accident Fund. Yesterday, the RAF, Road Accident Fund, launched their backlog campaign, which is the Drive Your Claim Forward campaign that is meant to encourage claimants to submit outstanding documents like ASAP. But I think there's a story to that in terms of whether that claim can become prescribed or not. So either way, it's an issue that I think should concern you. My guest is Macintosh Pulela. Goodness, we haven't chatted in a long time. Macintosh. He's the communications head of the Road Accident Fund. Macintosh, you're live on the National Pulse. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. It's good to talk to you again, mate.
Yeah, probably last time I saw you was at a movie house. I'm serious. It's that long ago. Anyway.
That is how long it's been, yes.
I know, absolutely. Right. Tell me, what's the position with the Road Accident Fund in terms of this drive?
So what's happening, Ashraf, is that we have in our books 321,000 claims, and of those, about, if not more than 200,000 were lodged before the year 2021. And what we've done is we've classified the ones before the year 2021 as backlog claims, and we're desperate to have them finalized as quickly as possible. And you're right, in your intro you said that we want people to come forward. Now, 97% of our claims are represented by lawyers, and so what we're asking people to do is to obviously phone us on our numbers. We've provided SMS, details as well, and to check if their claims, have been dealt with, and if not, what documents are missing, and if they're represented by lawyers, to go to their lawyers and say, I've spoken to the Road Accident Fund, and they're saying this is a document that's been, I gave you this document, and why are you still sitting and not finalizing my claim?
Why are you doing that? Is it because that there's been this disconnection between, client and lawyer?
Well, what we find, Ashraf, unfortunately, is that we aim to finalize the claims within, say, 120 days, which is 4 months, give or take. And what happens is, obviously, it's not in the interest of lawyers to finalize claims that quickly, because you must remember, the longer the claim stays with them, the longer they're able to claim what you call legal and administrative fees. In other words, when we call them as a Road Accident Fund, when their clients call them, or whoever calls them that it has to do with a certain claim, they bill. And it is in their interest to bill for as long as possible. And so, unfortunately, they don't want to finalize the claim quickly. I remember in 2022, we introduced what we called the RAF1 form, which basically had a list of documents that we needed. And we said, when you submit your claim for the first time, what we want you to do is to have all these documents so that we can give you an offer within 120 days and finalize your claim. And guess what the lawyers did? They went to court, and bizarrely they won.
Okay, yeah. But are you suggesting that this is not isolated, that as a matter of course, that lawyers, that means many, the majority of lawyers are deliberately stretching the settlement of the claim because it suits them in terms of billing costs to their client?
Unfortunately, a great majority of them is stretching the claims to the point where you must remember President Justin Lambo of the division in Gauteng, in the conference in December mentioned that there's a queue of lawyers every single day who have turned the RAF into a gravity train. What they do is 82% of our claims end up in either the corridors or the steps of the court because they stretch it to the point where they can't do so no more. And when we get to court and we are wanting to argue before a judge, and then they suddenly realize that actually we didn't need a judge because we had given them an offer a long time ago, and then they offer to settle. And that's exactly what happens. I mean, most of the lawyers, the great majority of them, stretch it to the point where they can't stretch it no more because they want to milk the RAF.
Well, I mean, maybe that's a separate conversation with the Law Society in terms of what they're doing, isn't it?
Good luck with that, because we've engaged them. We've engaged them for a great amount of time, and it's only recently that I've seen that they've sent a press release for people to come forward to report lawyers, and we appreciate the steps. But it happened at a time when them and our CEO started having a ping pong, like a serious argument about the time that they take to resolve, these matters, because we've submitted matters going back a long time with them, and they take quite a long time to resolve them, and we had to complain bitterly until the time when they released that press release calling for people to come forward and report the lawyers.
So on the broader issue, how many payouts still are outstanding? I think what I'm talking about, something that is, I would say, in arrears or delinquent. That means they should have been settled a long time ago. I mean, can you tell us how many and what value that's worth?
Over 200,000 claims, and it's difficult to put a value on it because you remember each and every claim is assessed, individually, and depending on the extent of the injuries, we then pay out their claim. So a claim can be anything, paying as little as say 100,000 or 150,000 rand, to maybe paying 5 million rand. So it's difficult to put a number of it on it. So I can tell you that it's billions upon billions of claims.
And can we say, in your case, I think you said 4 months, ideally from application you'd like to pay out, right? Assuming it goes through its natural course of determining the validity of the claim. Is that right? That's
Yes.
your target?
That's correct.
Right. So how many, if 4 months is your target, what's the general payout time now?
Well, the general payout time, let me tell you, we've only settled, our target was for now 20% given the situation, but we've settled only 16% of the claims in the recent financial year, and the 2022-2023, only 16% were settled within the 4 months. So it means a great majority is not settled within the 4 months. When you say average, it's difficult for me to put the average. I mean, anything between, say, 3 years, sometimes stretching all the way to 5 years.
Oh, my goodness. I mean,
that's unacceptable, Ashraf, because you must remember you're dealing with somebody that has had sometimes a life-changing injury, and you need to reintegrate them to society. Absolutely. And they desperately need this money. Yeah.
Now, let's say we do our citizen duty as the National Pulse, and we pick up this issue besides speaking to you. What should be our next port of call? Who should we be talking to try and drum up the support and the pressure to try and get these claims sorted out quicker?
The Law Society needs to be spoken to encourage their members to behave according to the oath that they swore. But I must tell you, Ashraf, it's going to be very, very difficult, because if you think that this is a recent problem, it is not. It precedes 1994, where the fraud and the corruption ran into the tens of thousands, to the point now where it runs into the millions.
Yeah.
There was a time when we paid lawyers well over 10 billion rand a year. Now we've reduced it down to around 3.6 billion, give or take, and we want to reduce it further, but we want to go more than that. What we've proposed is the RAF Bill of 2023, which we submitted to Parliament last year, where we were saying we want to do away completely with the lawyers, so that our claimants, like the ones for SASSA, like the ones for NFSA, can just come directly to us. Look, those two have their own problems, but they do work.
Okay.
We want to, like them, to deal directly with our claimants.
All right, and then put the lawyers out of business. Goodness, I'll get a call right away. Thanks for that conversation, Macintosh. We're certainly going to follow it up. I think it's a really, really important conversation we need to be having. So thank you for alerting us to that issue, Macintosh Polela, the Road Accident Fund's head of communications. I'll tell you what, if you're in the legal space, you want to tell us about it, particularly if you're in legal practice and you deal with these road accident funds. I mean, is he spot on? Is he wrong? Tell us about it. 086 000 2032. I'll take maybe 3 calls on this issue. Otherwise, voice notes or text 0614 104 107. Right now, Madupi is heading up the news desk. Let's get to him.
May be implemented against ANC minister. Very good afternoon. The Health Products Regulatory Authority says it is developing a plan to force pharmacies and others to digitally record the IDs of people who've been given codeine, which is used as pain relief medicine and cough mixture. The plan comes in response to the high levels of codeine abuse, particularly amongst the youth. Here's SAPRA's Mokhadi Fafudi.
We had to, as stakeholders, meet in the industry to see where are the loopholes, why are these going into the illicit market, why are supplies issued incorrectly when there are laws, when there are professionals to safeguard this. But still we are seeing this problem and growing, and this is also going through our borders. We need a centralized database where we'll be collecting data so that we can prevent, we can detect and respond immediately when we detect that there is a misuse, overuse and abuse.
The Thohoyandou Magistrates Court has transferred for trial the murder case of a prominent Limpopo media socialite accused of killing his partner. Livuani Madadze has been charged with illegally killing Lindelani Nengovela. He allegedly discarded her body in a water-filled pit toilet at Mangudi Hasidu village outside Thohoyandou in January last year. He was previously granted 50,000 rand bail. The trial has been set for September in the Thohoyandou High Court. Calvin Nengudza from a group against gender-based violence called the Real Man Foundation has welcomed the transfer of the case to the higher court.
Livuani Madaje's issue has been transferred to High Court in Thohoyandou, and we, as Real Men Foundation, we are welcoming the decision that has been taken by this court. And then the court will resume at High Court on the 16th to 20th of September 2024. So we are looking forward for the justice system to play their part. We are so happy and welcoming the decision.
The Health Department in the Eastern Cape says there's no scarlet fever outbreak in the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro. The department acknowledges that a case was reported in the metro 2 weeks ago. The issue came to light this week when a learner from a school in Klebecha died after a short illness. The school put out a notice urging other learners who might have had contact with the deceased learner to consult a doctor and be alert to flu-like symptoms. Department spokesperson Mkhululinda Mase says they're urging the public to get their flu vaccine at the nearest health facilities.
The department has noted that as we are fast approaching the winter season, we are starting to see more and more people getting a flu. This is why we are making a call, particularly calling on young people, the elderly, and people with other underlying conditions to go and get a flu vaccine at the nearest health facility. This will ensure that even if they do get the flu, it will not be as severe.
In election news, former ANC Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe says the party's rules, including the step-aside rule, may be triggered as Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa could face money laundering charges. Media reports say the NPA is investigating Kodwa over allegations made against him at the State Capture Commission. It is alleged that Kodwa received over 174,000 from embattled businessman Edwin Sodi. The commission also described Kodwa as being beholden to businessman and former EOH executive Jahan McKay. In 2022, Kodwa denied this and indicated that he would take the report on judicial review. Addressing the media during the ANC's election campaign in Soweto, Motlanthe says that the party will ensure that fair and just processes are followed.
There are clear guidelines and rules in the ANC. As you know, there's even the step-aside rule. So whoever gets charged formally, they know themselves that they have to step aside from whatever positions of responsibility that they occupy. So if the NPA is building a case against Minister Zizi Kodwa, we wait and see, because we have no way of being privy to that information and what they do. Our role and concern as an organization is always to ensure that there is fairness and just procedures followed here.
And the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has confirmed that Russian troops are now operating at an air base in Niger that is hosting U.S. military personnel. This follows a recent decision by Niger's military rulers to expel U.S. troops from their country. The BBC's Demeshken Debesai reports.
Lloyd Austin has played down the Russian presence in Niger, insisting they pose no threat to American forces there. But the deployment of Russian troops to Niger's airbase intensifies pressure on Washington amid negotiations for the withdrawal of the nearly 1,000 U.S. forces from the West African country, following an expulsion order by Niger's military junta. The U.S. operated drone bases in Niger to combat regional insurgents, but its decision to denounce last year's coup led Niger's junta leaders turn their attention to Moscow instead.
The top story, the Health Products Regulatory Authority says it is developing a plan to force pharmacies and others to digitally record the IDs of people who've been given codeine, which is used as pain relief medicine and cough mixture. For SAFM News, Coming
up in your sports this hour, Williams extends contract with Sundowns to 2028 and Alcaraz withdraws from ATP Italian Open with arm injury. More details at 4:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good afternoon. Major collision involving a truck. I believe it's jackknifed on the Mike 1 North before Woodmead Drive. Now, this is a very heavy delay leaving Joburg. Multiple lanes are closed. The traffic is backlogging to Glenhove Road. So from Melrose all the way up through Corlett, through Greyston, through Marlborough Drive, very slow through to Woodmead. It's a big enough crash and incident to be having an impact on the southbound as well. So Woodmead through to Marlborough Drive, heading into Sandton is quite a heavy queue. Roadworks on the R21 leaving the airport up towards the Benoni exit has got you queuing, and roadworks on the R21 south at Clayville has traffic queuing quite heavily as well. Just outside Durban, there's quite a way to get up Fields Hill today. The M13 from central Pinetown through Richmond Road up the hill towards sort of Pioneer Road territory looking quite slow. Still very long queues from Bergville exit on the N3 north up towards Tugela Plaza. That's as recovery of this morning's tanker crash continues, both lanes remaining closed. And if you're driving Cape Town's R300, factor in some queue time. That is heavy today from the N1 highway down through to Bottle Array Road in the Brackenfell area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Catch the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday at 7 on SABC2. It's Elimination Week, and contestants must make big things happen as they fight to stay in the competition. Their task? To create an impressive tower of baked items in a test of skill and creativity. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster SA. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Okay, you need to make a note of this, right? Weekday nights on S3 are about to get lit. BBC Primetime will give you access to hand-picked selection of BBC Studios' award-winning dramas, documentaries and factual entertainment with titles such as Luther, Critical, Cheaters, Top Gear, Live at the Apollo, Louis Theroux, Forbidden America and more. You simply do not want to miss this. So tune into S3 from the 1st of May. It's already started. You know that. From the 9 p.m. until 11 p.m. to channel the very best of British entertainment with BBC Prime Time only on S3. Open up.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
We are going to chat to Kaya Sitoli pretty shortly around the issue of Zizi Kodwa. That comes up in a moment or so. But before that, we've had this conversation about the road accident fund. And I think it's such an important issue. And I want to welcome, calls and WhatsApp voice notes on this issue. So if you have an opinion, WhatsApp to 0614 104 107. Otherwise, to call in live 086 000 2032. Now, Lemias from Bushbuck Ridge. Well, what's your point?
Ashraf, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Right, you have a view, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, as community leaders, some of these things, especially when it relates to RAF, it does worry us. And Ashraf, of course, what McIntosh has said, there's nothing new. 10 to 15 years ago, and then we had this particular challenge when I was still in Parliament that these rogue lawyers have actually bankrupted RAF. And this RAF is actually trying to rise from the ashes because it has been bankrupted by lawyers. And it is amazing that people that are so learned that they can really engage themselves in activities that undermine law. This morning, I gave somebody else who could not walk because of a road accident before 2018. And now he's feeling pains. And when he walks to go and register a claim, then his claim was declared that it is over the time limit. And again at home, in my village, I've got a person that is waiting for a payout. He has been talking since last year that his money is coming, and the money is not coming. And what McIntosh is saying now, probably that is the reason why his money is not coming. He has been told that the money is declared, but for some reason, somewhere the money is held up. And we really need to make a call as civic leaders, as Sanko, that the lawyers must behave properly because there are ordinary people, innocent people engaged in accident that have ruined their employment. They have ruined almost all prospects of actually making money. And they rely on what is going to come out with their broken legs and everything. And these healthy lawyers that are working, getting a salary at the end of the month or whatever, then they are making their life more difficult. We really plead with them that they must actually stop doing that. And, it's the organization dealing with lawyers, they are also called upon to actually reign over these lawyers, to ensure that the ordinary people in the country are protected from these ill-advised activities of learned people.
Well, Lemmy, it's good talking to you firstly. Always good to engage with you. But number two, your point, I don't have to say much more about your point, excepting we have to raise that issue, and we're going to try and speak to the Law Society next week, is maybe do an investigation of our own in terms of what exactly is the issue. And we do need answers. People need answers. So thank you for that call. There are more calls. More people want to talk about it. But let's get to the issue of Zizi Kodwa, and we'll talk to Kaya Sitoli right after this.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen. Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Right, you may have heard us having a conversation with Mpumelelo Bond New Yorker, who's an attorney, on the issue of the NPA and the Mail and Guardian piece that suggests that Zizi Kodwa was next on the list to be facing up to them, right? He, of course, has another view of that, to say at the moment there's nothing more than talk, and it's media talk, and Zizi Kodwa should just stay put. Having said that, there's the other issue, which is that there's been a huge push by the public to the NPA to say we want answers. We need to see your service delivery. So it is in that context, and the name is being mentioned, that we chat to Kaya Sitoli, who's an independent political analyst. Kaya, good chatting to you. It's been a while. Last saw you in Stellenbosch.
It's been a while indeed. Good afternoon to everyone.
Yeah, thanks for talking to us, right? Okay, what do you make of, first of all, the Mail and Guardian piece about Zizi Kodwa and the allegations and the role of the NPA in all of this?
Oh, I have existing fears, and existing fears are born out of a history of these leaks that tend to give us an impression that something is going to happen, and then it all fizzles out. And I think the problem that we have is whenever we get reports of this nature, the very first question would be, well, why would anyone in the NPA think it's important to leak this, particularly when it feels like there's a process still underway rather than an imminent arrest? And I think the danger that exists with that is that obviously if nothing then materializes within a particular time frame, then people start speculating about, well, what is being done in order to manage the process? Is something being done behind the scenes in order to kill the momentum? And that is dangerous territory for the NPA. And you would have thought that after so many years of having learned the pitfalls of this, the NPA would itself regarded as it is in its best interest for absolutely no hints or leaks to be released before there's actually a proper case in front of them that can be prosecuted, because right now an expectation has been created. This expectation is obviously born out of the fact that, when a report even cites actual numbers that are going to be used in the charge sheet, you imagine that this is something that is already close to fruition. So, of course, now if nothing materializes before the election or even thereafter, new questions emerge, and those questions, unfortunately, go back to the NPA. So it's not a tenable situation in my view.
Well, you and I know, leaks are leaks. Leaks do happen. Leaks happen in the dressing rooms of rugby teams and cricketers. It happens across the board, right? So I understand your point about, leaks need to be blocked, certainly from an NPA point of view. But the bigger issue is, if there are leaks, does it suggest that somebody's playing games, and what sort of games are they playing?
Well, it's a strange situation, because obviously you'd imagine that even within the NPA there is an understanding that they've suffered so many public humiliations in relation to high-profile cases. If you look at the Guptas, for example, then this is essentially one of those cases that even the NPA head herself would say, guys, if there's going to be a process of trying to communicate or trying to engage with a case of this nature, please make sure that we protect our integrity in as much as we can. In other words, let us not, run any risk of these particular premature leaks being released or whatsoever. And the reason that will become important is that at the end of the day, if this case goes wrong, like other cases that have gone wrong, the problem is that the reflection and the backlash will be against the leadership of the NPA to say, wait, hold on, what on earth is going on within that institution? How did this become the type of case where, again, the leaks do not result in a prosecution or even a successful prosecution? So I would have thought that after many years, you probably would have found a way to say within the NPA itself that those that are responsible, whoever is part of the value chain of a highly sensitive and a highly political case, must be the type of people that understand what the risk is associated with leaking information prematurely, what the risk is with not making sure that the chain of custody of whatever's happening is as strong as it needs to be. Because, again, if this goes wrong, Ashraf, you and I will be deliberating on what the NPA got wrong. It won't be a matter of, well, actually, maybe there wasn't the case to begin with. This was all speculation. And that's what the NPA must learn to proactively manage because of what we've done over the past 20 years.
Well, do you think the NPA, therefore, is under pressure, considering some of the, call it, failed high-profile cases, to actually deliver, you love tennis, to deliver an ace?
Yes, of course. I think it's overdue, and I think obviously a lot of people have been asking difficult questions about, well, if the country was going to be asked to spend R1 billion financing a state capture commission, for example, and the state capture commission then says, well, at the end of the day, those that have the responsibility to prosecute must do so, there is an expectation that there will be at least an explanation of why some of those have not translated into prosecutions. And of course, the Zizi Garda story is one of those that emanates from that. So there's an expectation that something will be done, and if nothing gets done, we need to know why. But of course, it's even worse when something gets done and then it fizzles out, because then the impression will be, well, it kind of looked like we're just ticking boxes without actually exercising your responsibility to prosecute independently and fairly. And that is, again, a dangerous situation for the NPA to be in.
Why do you think there's been such a logjam with regard to the NPA in terms of processes and then being able to turn that into convictions with bona fide cases?
Well, I think if you listen to the NPA head, you get the impression that there is clearly a difference in the, if you want to call it the barometer, that a structure like the Zondo Commission, for example, would apply versus what the NPA has to apply. So at the Zondo Commission, people can go there and say, I saw this, I heard this, I signed that, I was called by this person, and obviously the Commission would say, yo, that was dodgy, that was very strange. We are wondering why a president or a minister would have said that, and they would have said they would think this was an issue. What the NPA has to do is to actually then interrogate the essence of those disclosures, test those disclosures against what it actually discovers during its investigation period, and then determine whether what the sum of those discoveries are, whether there will be enough for it to launch a winnable case. And of course, if the answer is that we don't think there's a winnable case, then there's no winnable case. So there's no proposition that every single thing that the Zondo Commission said must translate into a prosecution. But the danger is once you give the hint that you are pursuing something, you create an expectation, and that expectation creates public, anxieties. And again, the history tells us that if you mess it up, you are actually not entrenching your own legitimacy and trust with the public.
Okay, and that's where we can leave it. I think for now, maybe Zizi Garda will do exactly what he's been doing, just staying put, or maybe getting very busy with election issues and heading up his portfolio at arts, sport, arts, and culture. Kaya Sitole, thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Very important insights there delivered by Kaya Sitole, who's an independent political analyst. And you may have your own opinions on that. You can also connect with us. Just WhatsApp or give us a call too.
Nna le bitso la ka ke Bonolo Moagi di Bantswang ba re ke Miss B Morara Miss T Moagi di the Bonnie B Bonbon, and we'll be now playing Keno on Mondays at 4:30. The day has changed, but the time slot hasn't. So if you're interested in news that's happening with us kids and our peers around the world, don't forget to tune in. See you there.
Top Sport.
The Netball South Africa CEO Mudiri Komane. We have seen how the Telkom Netball League has taken Johannesburg by storm. How has the atmosphere been? How do you think it's been received by people here in Johannesburg?
It's excellent, honestly. I mean, we've seen a lot of schools, a lot of new fans coming through. Yes, we haven't been able to fill the arena, but we've had, a whole lot of people coming in. And, we are seeing new talent, especially in the B division. New, young ones coming up. We see the Krenans, that's coming up with 5 national players on court. It's quite exciting, honestly.
Top Sport on SAFM.
Right, attorney Yunus Mohammed was detained and held in solitary confinement, but it didn't stop him fighting apartheid. In the mid-1980s, he was the founder of the United Democratic Front and helped to defend the 22 activists charged in the Delmas treason trial. On May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honor Mohammed's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. Hashtag Remember Me.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, regarding the RAF or the Road Accident Fund, if you need to make a claim, they in fact will be saying that contact us directly and follow up with us directly, okay? And here's the number, 087 820 1111. 087-820-1111. Many others want to talk about that issue. I'll take your calls as soon as we get some time free in the show. Let's, however, celebrate. We've been doing lots of celebrations. Another celebration, this time with Prof. Tulio de Oliveira, the world-renowned scientist in the field of genomics and the director of the Center for Epidemic Response and Innovation at Stellenbosch University. Well, first of all, good chatting to you and a time for you to celebrate. Hello.
Hello, and good afternoon to you and all your listeners.
Thank you. Now, of course, we're talking to you because you've been given a mention, and that's an all-important mention, in the Time magazine's Time 100 Health 2024 list. I mean, yeah, that has got some currency, isn't it?
Yes. Of course, we get very honored and happy, especially when South Africa is mentioned for advanced things like science and technology, not for bad news around the world.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly the point, isn't it? That so tell me why they must have told you why you were on that list. You tell us.
Okay, so it's the second time that I'm listed by Time 100. So the first one was 2 years ago. That was in the Time 100 most influential people in the world. So, for example, this year, our captain of the rugby, Yasia Kolisi, was also in that list. I was very proud to be in the same list as him. And then they decided to do a second list that is now focusing on health and scientists. And again, I was listed on that. So it's very exciting to see American press, American public recognizing not only the sports excellence of South Africa with our rugby, but also our scientific excellence. So this recognition is not just for me, it is for all the scientists in South Africa and in our team that work so hard to advance science, especially on infectious diseases.
Well, you certainly came to my attention around the time of COVID-19, and it's interesting you just mentioned infectious diseases, so yes, right. Tell me more about, well, first of all, this is the point. How would they know about the work you do? I mean, we may think it's obvious, but it's not obvious, I suppose. There has to be a way that they know that there's a person in South Africa, in Stellenbosch, who's doing this, that, and the other.
Okay, so in science, in the scientific field, we have different currencies, what we call. The first one, it is like scientific publications. So when you publish like in the top scientific journals, and our team and South Africa is very fortunate. We really punch above our level. So almost every couple of months we get a publication that get a notice by all the scientific community in the world. That's when you publish in the top scientific journals, and we have multiple. We have like 30 or 50 of those. And the other one, it is when you do a discovery that have an impact that not only in the scientific community, but in the general community. So, for example, an impact when change policy or when guide a new development of therapy or a vaccine, or when something that is changed that end up saving hundreds of thousands of lives. And that's where the world notice our research. So we have been working in that field for close to 20 years, first with the two big epidemics that affect South Africa, HIV, AIDS, and TB. I have made major strides on understanding how HIV is transmitted, how it developed drug resistance, and the same on TB. And then when came the COVID, we became one of the top scientific group on acting quick to identify variants, but then also feed back this information to our government to act. And South Africa ended up as a kind of success story, especially during the Omicron wave, that we almost have no deaths and no lockdowns or something like that, because we could act quick. And now what we work, it is using these hundreds of millions of rand of investment to pivot to other diseases. And the ones that we are most worried and the ones that we are working at the moment is infections amplified by climate change.
Certainly, you have a very impressive track record in terms of your CV. What is it that's drawn you to this field of health?
I think that yes, the field of health, it's kind of a hard field in South Africa, because South Africa has, and Africa in general, has the biggest burden of infectious disease. But then it's also a field that gives great It's pleasure to be when you end up like saving lives of people. So, for example, at SERI and at CRISP, I also direct another institute at University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. We have infectious disease clinicians that go to the clinic every day to treat patients with advanced HIV, TB, or the infectious disease. And it gives a great reward to see people going back to health. Yeah. So I think that's what drives us. It is to make a difference on the health, and especially in the health of impoverished population that already suffer so much economic hardships and also had a health hardship, on how we can use that to improve the lives of them.
Well, certainly on the show, we look at champions all the time. We look out for champions, and you clearly fall into that category. Here's the thing in 30 seconds, right? Having won, how then do you leverage this global acknowledgement once again in 30 seconds?
I think that we leverage as acknowledgement not only to me or my group, but to the whole science in South Africa, and to tell especially the young people that you have a good scientific future to the country.
And there's a need for you to deliver healthcare in various forms to the people of South Africa. And clearly, you do just that. Tulio de Oliveira, I much appreciate your time. Wonderful to have you on that list of the Time 100 Health 2024 list. Certainly love dealing with champions. You're certainly one of them. Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. Right, let's get to the news desk now with Madupi standing by.
Thank you very much, Ashraf, and a very good afternoon. The Health Products Regulatory Authority says it is developing a plan to force pharmacies and others to digitally record the IDs of people who've been given codeine, which is used as pain relief medicine and cough mixture. Joburg Mayor Kabelo Kwamanda says the city will direct its capital expenditure to ensure the sustainable supply of water and electricity. And the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court says all attempts to impede, intimidate, or improperly influence its officials need to stop immediately. Details coming up at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
We start with the major backlog alert for the motorist driving through the Mike 1 North today in Joburg. It's a truck that's jackknife blocking multiple lanes between Marlborough Drive and Woodmead Drive. The traffic is slowly working its way back through Sandton, back through Melrose, queues back beyond Glenhove Road. You've got options of Oxford and Rivonia to the west, or you've got the option of Barry Herzog, not Barry Herzog, but Louis Borton out to the east of the highway. So options to get yourself from central Joburg up into the Sandton and Woodmead area, bypassing the Mike 1. It is very heavy. No real change driving towards Joburg coming out of KZN. Tanker crash from this morning between Bergville and Tugela Plaza still being recovered. Still 2 lanes closed. Just the emergency lane filtering a massive backlog of traffic through. It is going to take a while to clear that scene from the back of it right through to the front of it. So you might want to think about alternative options. Olivier's Hook Pass has been popular today with motorists moving through that area on the alternative. And Cape Town, very heavy pressure on the R300 today. There's an issue at the Bottler Ray Road off-ramp to Brackenfell and Cales River. The queue starts on the N1 outbound off-ramp to the R300 south. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Tuming Khapele.
Right, Tumi, what are we going to talk about now?
We start things off with football. Mamelodi Sundowns have extended the contract of goalkeeper Ronan Williams to 2028. Williams had joined the club on a 5-year contract in 2022, set to expire in 2027. Now, the new deal is a 1-year extension with improved terms. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies assistant coach Agnes Nkosi says that the team has prepared a good tactical strategy ahead of the Gauteng derby between themselves and JVW at the UJ Stadium tomorrow. Banyana Bastal have dominated the first quarter of the Hollywood Bet Super League, returning to the top of the log with 24 points, claiming a remarkable 8 wins in 9 matches this season. And Gosi believes that sticking to the game plan will be crucial against a tough JVW side. Then moving on to netball news, Gauteng Golden Fireballs coach Dr. Elsa Jordan insists that they will end Gauteng Jaguars' unbeaten unbeaten run in the Telkom Netball League this weekend. The Jaguars hold the record as the most decorated team in the TNL, boasting 6 championships and 4 cup final appearances since the league's inception in 2022. They're consistently the team to beat, drawing extra motivation from every opponent that they face. The rivalry matches between the Jaguars and the Gauteng Golden Fireballs, particularly in the Gauteng Derby, are especially intense. Then in motorsport, the Kazakhstan MotoGP has been postponed from next month until later this year because of devastating floods in the country. The race had been due to take place from the 14th to the 16th of June, but unprecedented bad weather and flooding across Central Asia has caused a national emergency in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan had been due to host the race for the first time after last year's edition was cancelled because of an ongoing work on the circuit and global operational challenges. In athletics, double world individual sprint champion Noah Lyles heads up a raft of top track stars who will compete in the World Athletics Relays in the Bahamas on this weekend. With the Olympic qualification up for grabs, Lyles added a 3rd world gold in Budapest last year after anchoring the U.S. team to victory in the 4x100 meter relay, and he will be joined by in the Caribbean by Olympic 200 meter silver medalist Kenny Bednarek in former Courtney Lindsay, and while 4 women who helped USA to gold in the 4x100 meter are also joining him right there. Then ending things off with the business of sports, and I was just thinking, now that Mamelodi Sundowns have wrapped up their league, their 7th consecutive league, I was like, let's take a look at how much they have made so far. So with them winning the league, it's around 15 million rand. They have won the African Football League, which is around 73.5 million rand. And then they won the Q Innovation for the first quarter, which is an extra 1.5 million rand. And also made 800,000 rands after finishing as runners-up in the MTN 8. So if you have a calculator...
And who's their boss, by the way?
Who's there?
Who's their boss?
The chairman of the club.
Yeah, no, okay, don't answer that. They have lots of money. But I mean that's only this year, right? That's only this year.
That's only this year. And just by the way, they're still in the Nedbank Cup. Should they win the Nedbank Cup, it's an extra 7 million rand if they win, or 2.5 million rand as runners-up.
Okay. And so 7 in a row. The question is, who's going to challenge them? Nobody challenged them really this year.
I think Stellenbosch FC next year. We can even make a bet on that.
All right, there we are.
Well, with that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour for SAFM Sport. I'm Dumin Kapele.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Okay, let's get to, by the way, so we're chatting to Fassia Hassan after 5 o'clock. And, on a Friday we have this feature called the Fireside Chat. And we're going to hopefully get to her in a few minutes' time because she gets to choose the topic. Then we co-host the conversation, right? So we'll find out exactly what she's going to talk about. Do you have any idea what she may talk about? I mean, she's a politician, you know that. But what would she be talking about? We shall see about that. In the meantime, let's talk about the markets now with Paswani Mpatlele, who's the Senior Portfolio Manager at Makwe Fund Managers. Paswani, as always, good chatting to you. Let's start with the local and global markets.
Afternoon, Ashraf, and to your listeners. Ashraf, we went into today with investors having been waiting anxiously for employment numbers in the U.S. following confirmation by the Fed that it is also be looking at that data to help determine the interest rate path, and of which, Ashraf, the numbers came out dovish as the U.S. growth numbers slowed, along with its wages and unemployment rising to 3.9%. And this, at the back of this, we've seen confidence coming back in the market of an interest rate cut taking place of at least 2 that would be starting around September. Locally, JSE has come up with the news that they have established a memorandum of understanding with the Saudi Arabia Exchange to explore the feasibility around dual listing stocks to enhance liquidity and access to capital markets in South Africa and Saudi Arabia, which, yes, aligns very well with the JSE strategic goal to diversify and grow the investors' base. On a company front, Glencore is said to be considering taking a bid to buy Anglo America, increasing the likelihood of a bidding war that should be very positive for shareholders. With that said, and today's developments, it's a risk-on mood in equities as bond yields fall. The U.S. market was up. Nasdaq was up 1.8, Dow and S&P 1.1%. In Europe, all green. FTSE index up 0.7, CAC 0.9. Locally, we've backed the trend. JC was up 1%, with industrials supporting heavily up 1.8, resources 0.6, and financial 0.3. When looking into the commodity, we saw a divergence on these developments. Gold was down 0.5 at $2,291 an ounce. Platinum was down 0.1 at $957 an ounce, and oil was flat at $83.57 a barrel. The rand was stronger relative to major currencies as the dollar break down its trade support level. The rand against the dollar is at 18.48, rand against the euro 19.92, and rand against the pound 23 rand 24 cents. Ashraf.
Okay, that's it. That's it for today. We're going to chat next week then, right?
Speak.
Perfect. Thanks, Paswani Impatlele, the Senior Portfolio Manager at Markware Fund Managers. We'll have another business report coming up around 5:30 or so, right? By the way, there's... So we've had, let me see, there's quite a few. Here's another issue around the road accident fund. Ashraf, I was involved in a head-on accident which saw my wife killed. I'm so sorry about that, really. And I was left with a broken body. The RAF paid out 6,000 rands. Have I got that right? 6,000 rands? 4 years later, I don't understand. No airtime to call from Clement. I'll tell you what, Clement, maybe we'll try and call you. Let's connect. We need to try and get your story because I think it's that important. We'll certainly get Keys to do just that, okay? Having said that, we've got further calls on that issue. Here's another anonymous call. Hello, anonymous.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm very good indeed. Right. Tell us your story.
My story is familiar to the rest of a lot of people, I'm sure. I was involved in a car accident like 5 years ago in 2019 with my husband, where my husband passed on. We were driving with my cousin. She also passed on, but unfortunately I survived. However, I suffered a lot of physical disability. For me, it is not like what you can see that I have a broken leg or broken hand. I'm suffering like I've got internal injuries. We are still waiting for the doctors to finalize that this is a physical disability because now I cannot do my work. I cannot work, and my claim for loss of income was declined that I am still able to execute my duties, even though the doctors do recommend that it is not possible because of the kind of work that I do and the strains or the injuries I have in my body do not allow me. So since that day, I've never received, I also received a 20,000 from Road Accident Fund at that time for us to continue with the funeral of my husband, and then that was it. Everything now, when I go there, I'm told to bring this, do that, do this. Like, it's a very frustrating process, and I have triplets, girl triplets, which I'm left with.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm telling you, I can't drive even today. I cannot drive for more than, I only take my kids to school and come back. I have a sponge in my car, like a pillow, which I put it behind me because I had some injuries on my spine. I had ribs on which were broken. I have metal actually inside of
so
my
clearly,
body.
I mean, I'm so sorry for the loss again of your husband, and clearly the trials and tribulations you're going through. Now here's the question: are you dealing directly with the Road Accident Fund, or are you dealing through a legal representative?
I'm doing it through a legal representative. So the legal representative as well had a lot of issues, which we ended up reporting him also to the legal counsel, and there's a case now pending for him. But I am doing everything through him.
Okay, sure. You see,
And
that's
I
another
don't even
one.
have money now to continue even paying for those legal fees.
Yeah, I tell you what. Leave your details with my producer. Leave it with him. With Keys, we need to follow up on all these issues because we're going to try and connect with the Law Society and look at specific cases, including yours. All right. Thank you. Much appreciated, Anonymous. Sure, that is a huge cause for concern. That is a huge cause for concern. It seems like, as has been said up front, that there's just too many people, legal people, who deliberately hold on and stretch the case because there's legal fees that they have. So that means they're not getting paid as a percentage at the end. There's some retainer that they earn perhaps. Either way, it's not a good thing at all. By the way, I know some people have commented yesterday regarding not taking their calls, and we had Ace Magashule, and even now. Let me tell you, we try and take as many calls as we can and voice notes. It's not that easy as we balance out, and it's a whole production, okay? It's not just one person, that we balance out between the live caller, the amount of time we have, and the callers and what they want to talk about. So we are constantly, and I'm just putting that to you so you know, constantly aware of the need to engage you, the listener, and the caller in that case. We want to do that, and we try as much as we can. It's never easy. If you have the ideal way to do it, let me know. I certainly am for it, but apologies if you think that we're deliberately withholding your call. That is not the case. Your call or your voice note, I certainly want to know all about that as well as soon as we can, and maybe even later on we will we'll take your calls because I want to hear about it, okay? Fasia Hassan, by the way, coming up in the fireside chat after 5. Don't miss that. We talk elections now. Wayne Sussman after this.
Yo, I want to talk to this girl, but I'm shy, bro. Come on, go talk to her, bro. It's a masquerade party. Plus, you know the ladies love a man with a bit of mystery. Don't worry, we got you. Hey, girl.
I just want to know who's behind that mess. From the moment I saw you, you stole my heart. Can I please get your number, babe? And I'll take your word. I promise to love you forever, and this I vow. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'll show you my face if you show me yours.
Let's face it, when you channel your inner superstar, every moment turns into a musical. Catch The Masked Singer SA, Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. and see who's hiding behind the mask. Channel a better you with S3. S3, open up.
For the first time in 30 years, the ANC is set to lose its majority. Opposition parties have united as the multi-party charter for South Africa.
A strong democratic alliance with a proven track record
Can anchor a new government that serves the people.
But a new government that works is only possible if you vote for it. Let's unite to rescue South Africa. Vote DA.
This political party advertisement was paid for by the political party concerned. The views expressed in this advertisement are those of the political party and not those of the SABC.
The Chili Boys want to fight with all they have to get to the final. However, the Buccaneers are saying, "Angeke kulunge." The final spot is reserved for Ezimnyama Ngenkani. This is the 10th battle of the Nedbank Cup semi-final. Chippa United FC versus Orlando Pirates FC. This Saturday, 4 May at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Well, as you know, on a Friday after 5, we sort of drop our guard in many ways. We hardly talk about the really, really serious issues in life. We talk about other things, and we often invite a person to come in and join us. In fact, really sort of co-hosting with me. You know, they take calls, they suggest things, they raise other issues. And today my guest is Fasia Hassan. So, Fasia, good chatting to you, and you're in the hot seat, I see.
Yeah, but I think today, hopefully, is going to be a little bit more interesting and a little bit easier than the normal interviews I find myself in.
Now, you know the story. We ask the guest, whoever we get. Last week we had the lazy Makoti. We had her talking about being lazy. We asked you to literally choose whatever you feel like, right? So what have you come up with?
Yeah, I guess we all draw inspiration from our actual lives. And I recently got married. So my husband is Black African, I'm obviously Black Indian, and it's been a fascinating experience. But I thought, why not talk about it? Because sometimes it can feel like you were alone, but in reality, there's so many incredible stories out there, both good and bad. But I thought, why not? Because 30 years on in democracy, this should be a lot more normal than it's made out to be.
So you want to provoke that point about what people who are involved in these interracial or intercultural relationships and get their stories.
Yeah, I think it's also, apart from documentation, like I said, 30 years on, we all think we're so progressive and we all think we're so woke. And the reality is not many people are quite ready for those sorts of conversations.
Okay. Well,
so
let's see if they are ready. Do you have a view on this, Tumi?
I think it's absolutely interesting, as you did say now. I'm just thinking about me and my husband. I'm Tswana, he's Pedi. The way the cultural processes of getting married are different. So according to Pedi, when you pay lobola, you don't pay it all at once. So you pay half and then you come back. But as in Setswana, you're able to pay the full lobola.
You want it
all
up front.
at once. And I've seen with some of the things that we perhaps sometimes disagree with, it's based on the different cultures. But I love it because I tend to learn a bit more about the Pedis and he learns more about the Setswanas.
So that's almost intertribal, intercultural within what is considered black. And then the point Fasia is making is even more pronounced, where it's different shades of black. It's again, black Indian, black African, or white, black, colored, black, whatever.
I get you.
Any thoughts on that?
I think it's good. I still have the same thought process with regards to it. We learn each other's culture or whatever, so it's great.
Okay. Bottom line, it's not illegal anymore. It was illegal before, right?
30 years ago wouldn't have been possible.
Okay, here we are. We're going to chat about that after 5 as part of the Fireside Chat series. Looking forward to chatting to you, Fasia. Thank you. Now, by the way, you as the audience, what about you? I mean, are you in a mixed, culturally mixed relationship, mixed race, mixed culture relationship? And how does it play out? Not just between you and your partner. How does it play out with you and your partner and your families and the intricacies and the complexities and all those things that comes with, I suppose, being this rainbow nation? If you have an opinion, I'll tell you what, you can actually send a voice note now because we play it as we start the show after 5. 0614 104 107. 0614 104 107. Or you can also text or voice note, either way, as we get talking about interracial, intercultural marriages and relationships. Let's talk about the interconnectivity of politics and society after this.
This Election Watch feature is brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the #RememberMe initiative.
Well, every day, right up to the elections, we're certainly focusing on many election-related issues, all brought to you kindly by the Kagiso Trust. Today, we're going to look at some important trends, I think, that have emerged. Wayne Sussman is with me. He's an election analyst and very much on by-elections, I think, expert. Wayne, good chatting to you as always. Thanks for joining us on the National Pulse.
Thank you, Ashraf, and I really enjoyed our last conversation, and I'm looking forward to this one.
Okay, well, we have take 2 right now. Now, you want to raise some important issues that you've seen in terms of trends and tweets regarding important leaders in South African politics. So tell me about that.
Yeah, look, I think a big theme of this election is obviously the fact that in the last week or so, the ANC have unveiled Thabo Mbeki in Gauteng, Kgalema Motlanthe. I see that David Mabuza, the former deputy president, is going to join the campaign trail. And the person who's obviously missing from that, someone who has to attend a disciplinary meeting, I think, early next week, is President Jacob Zuma.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing, Ashraf, and to prepare for an election night and the day after the election is many months' work. It's almost as hard as what a candidate for office, like the person next to you, has to do right now, which is a much harder job, and that's knocking on doors, etc., is looking at the data. And I think what is often forgotten about Jacob Zuma is that after Nelson Mandela, he's actually the second most successful ANC presidential candidate when it comes to votes. He won the party over 11 million votes on both occasions in 2009 and 2014. The only other ANC president who was more successful was Nelson Mandela in 1994. This means that Zuma won more votes, actual votes for the party, than Thabo Mbeki and Cyril Ramaphosa.
So that's a remarkable stat. I mean, just to start with, right? Yeah.
That's correct. And a lot of that, and that's why it's very important. At the end of the day, on election day, we get big numbers. ANC gets 66%, 62%. But I think it's very important to drill down in that data. And what was key for the ANC in 2009 and 2014, and I often refer to as Jacob Zuma's gift, is what he did in KwaZulu-Natal. He reduced the once potent force of the IFP into a bit player in 2009 and 2014, particularly in 2014 with respect to the IFP. However, what I've done over the last few days is this is a common term in politics around the world in election, is to see what the difference, if there are multiple ballots in the election like we have in South Africa, Ashraf, is what was the difference in the national ballot and then the combined provincial ballots. And here Cyril Ramaphosa was extremely successful. He got 645,000 more votes than all the ANC premier candidates combined. And I think this points to the fact that a lot of people voted for, yes, they voted for the ANC, but they liked Cyril Ramaphosa, the presidential candidate in 2019. And there was a vote for Ramaphosa. Mandela didn't come close to that. Zuma didn't come close to that. And Mbeki didn't come close to that. So I'm saying that there was a net benefit for the ANC in 2019 with Cyril Ramaphosa as their candidate. And these are some of the data I've been looking at over the last few days.
And I take it that that has got to do with that, could I call it the winds of change or Tumamina, or this whole new dawn that people bought into?
That is correct. There was tremendous, and I use this term as a term of respect, this idea of Ramaphoria, that a lot of people, particularly in Gauteng, you can see it, that there was vote splitting in many middle-class suburbs where the ANC did much better than usual, and in other parts of the country as well. And that will be key for the ANC this time round. As I always say, as you go to an election, yes, it's one thing going after new voters, and I'm sure that candidate Fasia Hassan, who's I think currently in MPL, is working very, very hard at that. But the most important thing is to win over those who voted for you in the past. And when the ANC looks at its election campaign, they will try replicate what as candidate Jacob Zuma did in 2009 and 2014 in KZN, but also take the good stuff what Ramaphosa did in 2019 in a win over people who might not have voted for the ANC in the previous election.
So I mean, there's so much that's come out of it, and perhaps, whether you want to talk about the ANC or others, if you have the data, and if you don't, I understand that, in terms of what are the factors that determines that a party gets more votes? What I'm trying to say is it this manifesto that we talk about every single day that becomes very boring when we repeat it? Or is it the party leader or the party leadership or the track record, and in some cases the parties don't have a track record, that determines why you and I and others will vote for a party once and twice and more?
Yeah, look, this is anecdotal. I don't have the data on this, but sadly, manifestos and all parties should have worked hard. Some might have worked harder than others on their manifestos. At the end of the day, it comes to leadership, candidates, messaging, their ability to win over hearts and minds. One of the remarkable facts of the last election was the EFF's growth in KwaZulu-Natal. This allowed them to almost double their percentage from 6 to 11%. And there, I think Julius Malema, that was a bad Freudian slip, did very, very well in winning over disaffected voters in that particular province. So I think it has a lot to do with leadership, with messaging, and capturing the zeitgeist of the moment. What was a key thing in the 2019 election, and I know that Fasia Hassan is sitting next to you, was this idea of fees must fall and roads must fall activists taking prominent positions in political parties. You saw that particularly in the ANC and the EFF, to some extent other parties as well.
Very true.
I wonder whether that has been a theme of our elections this time. I think less so this time.
Well, I think you're right. And maybe just the last point, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot more getting it closer to May 29, right? Which is, what is the one emotional driver that would get us to rally around one party? Notwithstanding all the things you mentioned, and you mentioned messaging, I understand. But is there an emotional driver that we can hang on to?
So, Ashraf, I'm going to try to answer that question very briefly, but the main story, the main surprise story of the 2019 election was what I just mentioned with the EFF. But what was the two other success stories? Was the Freedom Front doing well and the IFP doing well? And we saw this continue in local government elections, that identity still matters for South Africans. And the ANC, of course, has been extremely successful in this. I think identity, the DA is focusing on identity. A lot of parties are focusing on identity in this elections. And I think sometimes in our urban bubbles, we might not take identity politics seriously. But I wonder whether identity will be a key role. But I think it's many issues right now which are driving South Africans in these last few days to make up their minds and choose the party who they'll vote for on the 29th of May.
Well, there you are. Identity matters. That's for who are you and who do you vote for. It all is about the identity. Wayne Sussman, great chatting to you. I'm sure we'll have part 3 sometime soon. There we are.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
This Election Watch feature was brought to you by Kagiso Trust. Follow the hashtag Remember Me initiative.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 107 FM in Kroonstad.
Right, after the news, we'll have Fasiya Hassan, I think is ranked number 65 on the ANC list, but we're not talking politics at all. We will talk to her about a topic she's chosen, which is interracial, intercultural relationships, because as she's mentioned, she's Indian. Well, she's a black Indian married to a person who's Black African, as in Zulu, and what's their relationship like? But not just them. She wants to know about you. What's your take on these intercultural, interracial relationships? So that is our featured conversation in the Fireside Chat. And by the way, you can drop me a WhatsApp voice note or text right away on that issue, so we can play that as soon as we start the show, because it's all lots of fun as we talk in the Fireside Chat later on. 0614 104 107. What's your take on intercultural, interracial relationships? You tell me. What's your experience, in fact? Let's get the news now. Mudupi's at the news desk.
Deadline extended for special votes, and Joburg Mayor vows to address water crisis. Good day to you. We begin with election news. The IEC has extended the deadline for online applications for special votes to midnight tonight. The Electoral Commission says in a statement that it's received a lot of online applications, with 17,000 applications per minute being received today. The IEC says a total of 1,467,242 applications have been received. The Commission says the extension of the deadline from 5 p.m. this afternoon to midnight tonight will not affect preparations for the elections. Former President Jacob Zuma has launched a counter-application at the Constitutional Court to have the justices that adjudicated his contempt of court matter recuse themselves when the court hears the matter between the IEC and the MK party next week Friday. Soleka Kodashe reports.
Zuma is asking the Constitutional Court to consider the counter-application, which requests the recusal of 6 justices that sat on his contempt of court matter before the Apex Court in 2021. Zuma relies on Section 167, subsection 2 of the Constitution that prescribes that a matter before the highest court in the land must be heard by at least 8 judges. If granted, the legal consequence of this will be that the court cannot hear the case at all, and as a result, the order of the Electoral Court that Zuma may appear on the MK party list may stand.
The SA Health Products Regulatory Authority says it's developing a plan to force pharmacies and others to digitally record the IDs of people who've been given codeine, which is used as pain relief and cough mixtures. The plan comes in response to high levels of codeine abuse, especially among the youth. The authorities, Mukhari Pafudi.
We had to, as stakeholders, meet in the industry to see where are the loopholes, why are these going into the illicit market, why are supplies issued incorrectly when there are laws, when there are professionals to safeguard this. But still we are seeing this problem and growing, and this is also going through our borders. we need a centralized database where we'll be collecting data so that we can prevent, we can detect and respond immediately when we detect that there is a misuse, overuse and abuse.
The Johannesburg Mayor, Kabela Gwamanda, says the city will direct its capital expenditure sustainable supply of water and power. Yesterday, he delivered his second State of the City address in Braamfontein. He says the city is resilient and they'll do whatever it takes to address the water crisis.
We have witnessed the degeneration of our city and now experiencing infrastructure failure in terms of water systems as well as electricity. I've taken it upon myself to focus on the areas that would have been neglected at some point in trying to roll out services to previously disadvantaged areas. We have given Rand Water our commitment as well as the Minister of Water and Sanitation, and saying that we will collaborate with them and we will find mechanisms that will ensure that we reduce the non-revenue water that is high in the city of Johannesburg.
The Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court says all attempts to impede, intimidate or improperly influence its officials needs to stop. Prosecutor Karim Khan's office put out a statement after much speculation about possible indictments being issued against senior leadership in the Israeli government over military conduct in Gaza. Show Bryce Peace reports.
The ICC says it's aware of the significant public interest in its investigations and that engagement was consistent with its mandate under the Rome Statute, but warned that its independence was undermined when individuals threatened to retaliate against the court or its personnel. It says such threats may constitute an offence against the administration of justice under the Rome Statute. The White House earlier said it didn't support the investigations because it didn't believe the ICC had jurisdiction over alleged crimes committed in the occupied Palestinian territories. The Republican House Speaker called possible warrants against Israel disgraceful and lawless.
Top story, the IEC has extended the deadline for online applications for special votes to midnight tonight. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khus.
And coming up in your sports this hour, Alcaraz withdraws from ATP Italian Open with an arm injury. Williams extends contract with Sundowns to 2028, and Blitzbox power past Spain in Singapore opener. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's another heavy afternoon for Joburg motorists. Today, it's the Mike 1 going north with a truck jackknifing between Marlborough Drive and Woodmead Drive. The back of the queue's down around sort of Glenhove Road territory. So if you're coming out of central Joburg, you'll hit some pressure from Glenhove and you won't get out of it until you pass that scene halfway between Marlborough Drive and Woodmead. Marlborough Drive is an absolute mess. You've got a lot of traffic trying to get on or get off the highway at that point. So that's sort of top end of Sandton, really busy. Breakdown on the N12 and R24 routes into Galuli. So coming in from the east, there's queues on both of those routes. This stationary truck, we believe it may be a medical emergency, which has resulted in a fatality. The N4 driving westbound. This is the Rustenburg Highway, approaching the Mabopani Highway exit. So if you're on the top of Pretoria on the N4, there's quite a queue. Looks like a single lane sort of filtering system through that one. Durban today, the M4 is pretty heavy from Blue Lagoon all the way through to Umhlanga. And if you're driving Cape Town, the big backlogs on the R300 going south to Botleray of East. It is busy, but well off its worst. And if you've left it until now to come out of the Cape Town CBD, probably wondering where everybody is. It's been a quiet day today. Kuberg Interchange and Hospital Bend flowing beautifully. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you.
Be part of the 17th Annual SA Sport Awards under the theme Celebrating 30 Years of Freedom Through Sporting Excellence, with great prizes to be won every week. All you have to do is SMS A, B, C, D or E to 32020 to vote for your favorite People's Choice Nominee of the Year. SMS is charged at R1.50. Free SMSs do not apply. The nominees are A. Evan Etzebeth, B. Gerda Steyn, C. Siamtanda Siya Kolisi, D. Pensi Dau, E. Kirsten Neuschafer. SMS A, B, C, D or E to 32020. Voting line closes at 9 p.m. on the 5th of May 2024. T's and C's apply. For more information, visit dsac.gov.za. Catch the SA Sport Awards on Sunday, 5th of May on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 at 7:30 p.m. Proudly brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the SA Sport Awards. Hashtag Isinja's Game. Hashtag SASA 17th edition.
Support Slipper Day on the 31st of May and help children like me fighting life-threatening illnesses to reach their dreams. Visit reachfordream.org.za and make a difference. And don't forget to step into your slippers on Slipper Day. Reach for a Dream, inspiring hope. This is an SABC supported initiative.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Right, so this every Friday we chill. We have what is called the fireside chat. Besides having sport and business, the rest of it is we chill out, and I get a guest that we line up, and we invite him or her to come in, and they then choose the topic. There's maybe 2-3 topics, and we have this conversation with my producer Temba, and we come out to say what we think is right, and that's the plan. And it's a bit of fun. It's completely chilled, and the guests inevitably co-host with me, so field calls and does other things as well. So my guest today is Fasia Hassan. Fasia, good chatting to you.
Afternoon, everybody. Excited to be here.
Thank you. What's your official title? I mean, you have a title, a political title.
Yeah, my day job.
Yeah.
So I'm the chairperson of the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs portfolio at the Legislature, and I'm also one of the spokespersons of the ANC Youth League.
Okay, so one is Gauteng.
One's Gauteng, one's national.
And the ANC Youth League. Okay. Now, Wayne Sussman alluded to you after you left the studio just now, because you were saying, I'm sure you'll be listening and talking about fees must fall. We're not going to talk about anything of that sort. We're going to talk about you and important issues that you bring up, right? So we've asked you to choose a topic. So let's play it out again. What have you chosen?
Yeah, so I decided to take some inspiration from my own life.
Okay.
I got married very recently, and my husband, and we'll get into it. My husband is Black African, and I also use the term Black Indian because we're all blacks in general. But it's been fascinating. There's been some really funny moments and some difficult moments as well. But I thought, let's share, because there's so many of us out there. Sometimes you feel like you're alone, and then there's other moments where there's incredible community.
So the crux of our light-hearted fireside chat is what? Understanding mixed race, mixed culture relationships.
It's understanding, but I think it's also saying, 30 years on, how much South African society can and has changed, but perhaps also maybe underlying to that, how much perhaps it hasn't. So, I wanted to deal with it on a more light, fun-hearted way, but also every now and again just remind us, and you said it just before the break, 30 years ago, let's say 31, 32 years ago, it wouldn't have been possible.
Absolutely.
And maybe also just for our listeners, I'm also 30 years old, so,
well, there you are.
There's this direct alignment.
Right, so here's the call out to you as the audience. I mean, let's as Fasia and I chat, you have a take on, mixed race, mixed cultural marriages or relationships? I mean, you could be, especially if you're involved in it directly, we certainly want to know about it. We're going to chat to you about that. But otherwise, maybe you're not involved directly, but you know somebody who is, and when you found out the first time, what did you say? Did you raise an eyebrow? Did you say, but that's completely normal? Or were you unhappy first and very happy now? And then when the marriage played out or the relationship played out, you experienced the cultural differences that clearly we all have. As to me, our sports anchor made the point that even within what we call Black African cultures, there are subcultures within all of them. So we all have those things, and these nuances are important. So, share. I mean, really, this is what it is. Just share your own experiences and your comments and how, did you do you also talk behind their back? I'm just thinking about it. Maybe you don't tweet about it, but do you say congratulations up front, but behind their back when you find out about it? Do you say certain things? Because if that's the case, I certainly want to know about it. Now, I have to say, talking about behind back and up front, that Fasia and I are related, right? We're related enough for me to be the program director at your wedding.
Yes.
So I had a front seat, right? Yeah. So I certainly saw that.
No, it was lovely. But also I think what's important about it is the different angle that it can bring. So we know each other in a professional sense, but also in a personal sense. And we so often, even before coming into studio, we look at people in different figures or industries, and you don't see them as people, as human beings with desires, with aspirations, with thoughts, with ideas, with love, with not love. So that's also, I thought today would be really exciting to do, because right now, everyone knows it's all about elections, but it's just nice to take a breather and say, well, actually, there's so much more to us.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get to some calls first, but then maybe you need to spend a few minutes talking about your actual experience, okay? But I don't want to delay calls because I want people to be part of this fireside chat. So let's get to Batu. In fact, no, we're going to get to Batu later on. So perhaps let's talk about you, okay? So I know because I know, but let's assume I know nothing. What's the story?
Yeah, so it's fascinating. Kule and I, everyone thinks that we met through sort of politics, and we didn't actually. He also led student movement and student protest at Stellenbosch. I was at Wits. Everybody knows the Fees Must Fall story. Ashraf, there was a panel that he and I were both meant to sit on, and I think we dodged the panel as Wits and Stellenbosch came. We never met. We only met in 2020 when a mutual friend introduced us, and it was peak COVID. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I'm not just going to go out, because you couldn't go out to restaurants at the time.
Yeah.
So our first interaction date was on Zoom. So it's also like this new age kind of process. And, at the end of the 40 minutes when it's meant to conclude, we just sort of kept renewing, because the wonderful thing about it is it forced us to talk and get to know each other. And then fast forward, my faith is a very important thing. I'm Muslim. And so throughout that process of the 3 years, Kule was learning about Islam, getting closer to God.
So he wasn't Muslim.
He was born Christian, and everyone has their own journey. They go this way, they go that way. And ultimately, he made the decision sometime, actually, in fact, well before we got married, that he wanted to become a Muslim and to take on what we call the Shahada, that declaration of faith. And that was also an interesting experience, because that adds a different dynamic, right? Different people on different sides of the family. Is he doing it only for you? On the other side, why does he have to, So that was also, I think, a very interesting one. But frankly speaking, now getting married, it was wonderful, because in many ways we cherry-picked what we wanted to do from the African culture, from the Indian culture as well, but then we did everything also Islamically. So people who don't know, we had multiple events.
You had what, four major events and about 3 others, I think, on the side,
so
7 or 8.
In total, we had about 7 or 8, but it was important because we wanted all of our families to feel included. We wanted, we didn't do lobola, but we did the Membezo and the Mabo ceremony together. And we also did a Bollywood Mehendi night. And then we also did the Nikah, and then, we had a white wedding.
Why no lobola? What was the story?
Interesting conversation. There's this idea in Islam about Mehr, which is likened to lobola, but it's a bit different. It's also financial security, but it's specifically for the bride or specifically for the wife. And that we did do. So we felt that sort of covered both bases. And also, Kule, I think in some ways, like I said, we and I'm smiling when we say it, but, we chose the things that we identified with. Okay. And we chose many of the commonalities. So even the gift giving, the Membezo, is a very common thing also in Indian culture. We give parcels as well. So we looked for different practices that we felt all of our family, all of our friends would. The 3 things. The first is we'd all learn from each other. There'd be something where we're in our comfort zone, but also another thing where we're out of our comfort zone. But also we wanted to do it in a way that really celebrated who we are. And I would like to think that we brought people together.
And I wonder what were the biggest challenges and what did you have to negotiate the longest with? And perhaps you're going to tell us about that, okay? But having said that, let's get some voice notes we want to play. And here's the question. We're asking you, perhaps you can make the call out. In fact, I'll give the number. Why should people call in and join the conversation, Fasia?
Yeah, look, I think we all think that it's a unique experience, but so many people have been involved in intercultural, interracial, both relationships and marriages. And it's just fascinating to hear about the different experiences, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. But also I think there's some really funny, light-hearted moments, and I'd love to share some of those where, you have a particular way you grew up and the other person also grew up in a different way, and, there's moments
What's the most common thing when people find out you were not even married, you're going out with this, now I'm going to use the word black as opposed to Indian, so we know the difference. You got this black boyfriend? What was the most common sort of question did they ask you or your comment?
I think it depended on the age of the people who asked. Young people pretty normalized, as long as the value system aligned. But I think amongst the older generation, there were lots of concerns. Well, is there that common value? Sure, but how are you going to make it work? Aren't you guys really different upbringings? But even subtle things, Ashraf, like walking into a restaurant, and it didn't really happen here in Joburg. It happened actually more in the Western Cape, in Cape Town, and spaces like that, where people would just stare.
Okay.
And then quietly, you know when people are like gossiping about you, and then they're trying to pretend like they're not, but you can see
right?
that exactly.
Yeah, you're very aware.
Or entering in either of those spaces, very Indian or very Black African spaces, and you sort of see that people watch you. You know, you're under a lot more scrutiny, or this idea of it's an experiment.
Both communities, let's say, so that the Indian community would find it strange that you were this black guy. But the black community, if you would would probably also find it strange.
Yeah.
In both ways at that time, yeah.
Although I think maybe it's a little bit more normalized in the Black African community. I mean, in the Indian Muslim community, in Joburg in particular, we're very insular in many ways. It's not common, even though it should be, for us to marry outside of this close-knit community. And so I think it was more of an anomaly there. So there was a lot more questions, a lot more, well, how is it going to work? What does it mean? And all sorts of things I never quite expected people to say. Okay. But to everyone else's credit, the people who are close to us really did rally around us.
Okay.
And there was not an issue when it came down to it.
But I want to find out about were there any issues at all. To call in 086 000 2032. Let's play this voice note.
Hi, Ashraf. Ashraf, I am a Xhosa man, married to a South African English lady. And for the most part, you know, it's any relationship, Ashraf. But there are times when, you know, the black community will think that I have married up, and the white community thinks that she's married down. And those are the dynamics we've got to scale around at times. Cool, Ashraf. Thanks for your show.
Appreciate it. There you are. I mean, he raised an interesting point about marrying up and marrying down. I mean, that came up with you?
I don't think so, but probably also because we have a very similar university sort of background and that kind of thing. I'm sure it was said behind my back. Obviously, there's that dynamic of what people put up to your face and what people are saying behind your back. But I just want to share like a very interesting kind of funny thing. And it's going to hold some stereotypes, which is also why so I'm like a very frugal person. I'm the guy who cuts the toothpaste in half.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that I get as much out of it. And the shampoo bottle and all of that. And Kule is not like that at all. For him, he's like, why are you doing this? You didn't grow up in poverty. Why are you doing this? You're embarrassing me. And I'm like, no, this is it. This is me being frugal. This is me saving money. And it's just this like constant back and forth thing that's light, but I thought I should share because it's small things like that. There are the big ones, but it's sometimes those little ones as well.
You're living with a person for the first time in your life, and you don't know that. And that's why this person's saying as well, all relationships are difficult. It doesn't really matter whether you are the same culture. I mean, that's true as well. Even if you're of the very same culture, it's difficult, but it's even more pronounced. It has to be more pronounced, or not?
I think it is more pronounced, and maybe this is particular to us. I think because there are those cultural differences, one works a little bit harder. And not in a bad way, in a way to understand your partner, to understand their families. And sometimes I think that kind of consideration or sensitivity does actually go further because you make more of an effort for the relationship to work.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, you can further WhatsApp voice notes 0614 104 107 or your calls 086 000 2032. What do you make of marriages or relationships across the racial line, across the culture line, maybe across the class line too, if you want to throw that into what do you make of it? And perhaps you want to share examples. It could be you, it could be somebody else. You tell us.
SAFM leading the conversation.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chipumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Any person aggrieved by any political advertisement or political election broadcast that is broadcast by SAFM may lodge a complaint within 5 days from broadcast with the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA. To lodge your complaint, please contact ICASA's Compliance Department via telephone number on 012 568 3233. That's 012 568 3233. Or email broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. That's broadcastingcompliance@icasa.org.za. Alternatively, complaintsccc@icasa.org.za. That's complaintsccc@icasa.org.za.
Call us on 086 000 2032. Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Okay, as part of the Friday Fireside Chat, we have a guest who effectively then co-hosts with me, and today is the turn of certainly a political figure. I think number 65 on the ANC list, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe it'll be the Honourable in Parliament soon, you never know. But we're talking about something far more important than that, which is interracial, inter-tribe, intercultural relationships with Fasiya Hassan. Now, Fasiya, we've got a caller. You can introduce him.
Yeah. Hi, Gomba, are you with us?
Hello there, yes, I'm Gomba.
Tell us your story.
Yes, ma'am. I'm listening to your show. It's very interesting to me. In my belief system, I also wish that we're marrying across. That's my wish. I wish that we're marrying across. Imagine if Palestinians can marry Jews, that problem there can be solved. If Africans were free to marry Jews in large scale, I think we're going to solve most of the troubles of this world. That's my wish.
No, it's a fascinating one. How often we think that politics is outside of the realm of love and relationships, and you're quite right. In so many spaces, even now in Palestine, people don't have the freedom to marry those who they love. It's very much like an apartheid. So I think that's a very good point. Even on the political side of me, even the social cohesion
and
part
Goma's suggesting if we come together, we'll solve a lot of problems because we're just so distant, isn't it?
And also it forces you...
I would have been to overcome most of the things so that we can overcome them.
Yeah,
and it forces different people, like, you have these ideas about a different group of people. And often, I think when you come into these sort of relationships, all of these notions sort of are thrown up in the air. So I agree with you. I think there's a huge space for us to learn from each other, to grow.
What I am keen on, thanks for that, Gomba. Thanks for that call. Much appreciated, okay? And best wishes with your own relationship, absolutely. Here's an interesting one from a listener who wants to relate what his or her child says.
Hi, good day, Ashraf. My name is Bernd. I'm from Durban, white male, and my daughter of 6 years old asked me the other day, can a peachy person marry a brown person? Obviously I said yes, marrying is about who you love. And another one that I found interesting was a friend of mine's daughter. She's similar age, and she asked her dad, what is a white person? So hopefully, and that little girl was white. So I wonder if that kind of dynamic is going to come through in the generations to come. Thank you.
Yeah, there we are. Interesting one. By the way, thanks for that voice note. And hey, anybody knows Fasiya and Kule directly, like personally, like me, right? You are certainly at liberty to call in and just share your own thoughts of what you've actually seen in their coming together, right? 086 000 2032. That's interesting. What's it? Peach person, brown person, white person that he brought up?
I was actually thinking about it. There's this we always talk about a rainbow nation. And I don't think we always quite appreciate what that means. Of course, it means we have that diversity. And even in the ANC, right, we say non-racial organization. And we say these things, but I don't think we really appreciate what we're trying to say. And it's this utopian kind of a society or idealistic kind of society where, and we're not saying we don't see color, we're saying we acknowledge everything that's gone on. But we're also saying that the more we see each other as equals, it means the more we can build a society that is non-racial, that is maybe a more truer form of a rainbow nation. So I find it fascinating that young 6-year-olds can have these conversations because, firstly, I think it's a good thing that we are. Because I think it was a taboo topic, some time ago. So to be able to have those open conversations, but also to, from a very young age, completely normalize it. And that's actually why, Ashraf, I wanted to talk about it, because like I was saying, 30 years on, it shouldn't be an anomaly. It should be so normalized that when we see it, we don't bat an eyelid. Oh, how lovely for
We
them.
understand it has challenges, but it shouldn't. It should be a sense of normal. I mean, absolutely.
Exactly.
There's some really interesting voice notes that I want to pick up on. And you can also call in besides the voice notes. There's another one on obviously the sensitivities of interracial couples.
Hi, Ashraf. Just my comment is that I think for a 30-year-old, having grown up in democracy, I just find that maybe some of the interrelational couples are a bit too sensitive about what they are perceiving, in the sense that they've been born free. So I think maybe they shouldn't be having this attitude. I'm surprised to hear that, this stuff about talking behind the back and all, etc. So, and I'm aligning that with the violence sometimes seen with the born frees, where there's been inculcated at them about apartheid, etc. So I think they have to emancipate their minds about what goes on or what people are saying. I think that may be a wrong perception, because when there's an oddity, people will look, but whether they comment and what they comment is of no consequence. I think if we free our minds of it. Thank you.
But the reality is there are consequences because people comment all the time. You have any thoughts on, I mean, have you guys been oversensitive at times? Because you know what might happen?
I don't think it's being oversensitive, right? If race wasn't an issue in this country, then we'd see a fundamentally different South Africa. Unfortunately, it is an issue. And it's an issue also in very conservative communities, because there's an idea that you be over there, we be over here. And I mean, I'll be open, Ashraf. There were some people, not necessarily only in a family, but in the community who had a lot to say. And that's because I think there's a sense of ownership. This girl is a Muslim girl. She's Indian Muslim from our community. She represents us. Now what's going to happen, even comments about where we're going, what we're doing, those sorts of things. So I don't think it's a matter of being oversensitive. I think it's a matter of saying, well, there are these things. I agree. It doesn't matter what gossipers say, but we must normalize it, and we must create a space.
I want to know how you normalized it, and perhaps I want to know if anybody else has been in this mixed race or mixed cultural relationship or mixed tribe relationship. How then did you normalize it? Because you must have had challenges. We all have challenges, no matter what. So you tell me how you did that. How you did just that. Okay, 0614104107, and then 086. That's the voice notes, and then 086 000 2032. Let's, however, get to the news desk with Greg.
Thank you, Ashraf. A quick look at the headlines at this half hour. The Electoral Commission has extended the deadline for online applications for special votes to midnight tonight. The ANC's former Deputy President, Clement Motlanthe, says the party is better placed to govern the country and self-correct, and this is why the electorate ought to give the party another chance. The Chinese space agencies launched a rocket carrying a probe that will aim for the first time to collect samples from the far side of the moon. More on that story and other news at 6 o'clock.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's still very heavy on Joburg's Mike 1 running north today. It's a jackknife truck between Marlborough Drive and Woodmead Drive. It's been there a while. It's blocking multiple lanes and the traffic is dreadful. It's all the way from Glenhove Road, and it is particularly thick and heavy. You've got a lot of traffic that's either struggling to get in to that Mike 1 at Marlborough Drive or struggling to get off the highway. So Marlborough Drive around the Mike 1 highway is very heavy. It looks like a lot of traffic's going out on Marlborough Drive and taking the N3 north up into Buccleuch for connections through Midrand. That N3 North's quite heavy as well. N12 R24 region from the Ekurhuleni side, queuing into a stationary truck at Galuli's interchange. Fatal incident on Pretoria's N4 Bequena Highway, approaching the Montpellier Highway exit. If you're on the Bequena Highway driving west direction Rustenburg, if you like, one lane open and quite a backlog of traffic to work through there. Friday volumes in the mix. A bit of a rerun of what you went through yesterday, leaving Durban to Pietermaritzburg. This lost load still there. It's a big metal coil in the left lane between Keyridge and Cliffdale. So backlogs of traffic is squeezed into just the two lanes that are open. And Cape Town today, the R300 running south is slowed down to Bottler Ray Road, and a pedestrian down on the N7 south at the N1. That's a queue coming from Bosman's Dam Road and a queue going north due to onlookers. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Stay safe on the roads. SAFM is with you. This is SAFM Sports with Domin Kapele.
In fact, you may want to introduce to me because she's doing sport now.
Oh my God, yeah. Guys, this is Tumi. She's incredible. She's really pretty as well. Over to the sport.
Thank you. All right, in your sports this hour, we start things off with tennis. World number 3 Carlos Alcaraz has withdrawn from next week's Italian Open. This is due to a right forearm injury that sidelined him in Monte Carlo and Barcelona. Now, the blow comes weeks away from the second Grand Slam of the season, the French Open, which is on clay court, obviously, and it gets underway on the 26th of May. Just last year, Alcaraz reached the semi-finals. Meanwhile, in football, Mamelodi Sundowns have extended the contract of goalkeeper Ronan Williams to 2028. Williams has joined the club on a 5-year or had joined the club on a 5-year contract in 2022 that was set to expire in 2027. Now this new deal is a 1-year extension with improved terms. In netball, the Gauteng Golden Fireballs coach Dr. Elsa Jordan insists that they will end the Gauteng Jaguars' unbeaten run in the Telkom Netball League this weekend. The Jaguars hold the record as the most decorated team in the TNL, boasting 6 championships and 4 cup final appearances since the league's inception in 2022. Now, they're consistently the team to beat, drawing extra motivation from every opponent that they face. The rivalry matches between the Jaguars and the Gauteng Golden Fireballs, particularly in the Gauteng Derby, are especially very intense, and looking forward to that one. In rugby, the Blitzboks made an excellent start to the Singapore Sevens by beating Spain in their opening fixture today. The Springbok Sevens claimed a 31-7 win, which consisted of 5 tries. Also on the side of the Springbok Women's Sevens team side, they scored one of their biggest upsets in their short history on the HSBC World Sevens Series circuit today, beating powerhouse USA 14-12 with the last play of the game. Ending things off with cricket. Cricket South Africa have revealed their national schedule for the 2024-25 international home season. And the big takeaway is that there are just 3 more test matches this year for the Proteas men's side. After June's T20 World Cup, the Proteas will take on Sri Lanka in 2 tests and then host an all-format tour against Pakistan over the festive season. And then the Pink ODI, meanwhile, has been earmarked for the 22nd of December at the Wanderers Stadium in Johannesburg. On that note, it is a wrap from my side. More on other sports tomorrow morning with Zai Khan. Other than that, and
before you go, I mean, you mentioned yours is like cross-tribal, not cross-race marriage, right? Yeah. Did you have issues with it?
Did I?
Like family issues? Were there issues?
Challenges? No,
It
absolutely.
was all fine.
Yes.
Okay. I thought there was going to be like a serious drama out of it. Okay, that's fine. You have a good working weekend. I know you are. Thank you. Right, there we are.
VfB Stuttgart loves it when their fans are happy and they want to impress them against the giants of German football. Meanwhile, Bayern München are still not impressed. They lost in their title race. They want to triumph in this battle. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Catch VfB Stuttgart versus Bayern München this Saturday, 4 May at 3 p.m. live on SABC 3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Top Sport.
Orlando Pirates have won 5 consecutive games in all competitions for the first time under Jose Rivero, who is the last Pirates coach to oversee a longer run in the same season.
The answer to your quiz question is Mitchell.
Pink shirt crawl.
Kind of like got it right. No, actually you were on point in terms of which other coach has really oversaw a longer run in the same season, because obviously we're seeing Orlando Pirates have won 5 consecutive games in all competitions for the first time under Jose Rivero. And those of you that says Rude Crawl, you got the answer right.
Top Sport on SAFM.
Right, now, Attorney Yunus Mohammed was detained and held in solitary confinement, but it didn't stop him fighting apartheid. In the mid-1980s, he was a founder of the United Democratic Front and helped to defend the 22 activists charged in the Delmas treason trial. It's a very historic around that, isn't it? So on May the 29th, the Kagiso Trust's Remember Me initiative encourages South Africans to honour Mohammed's memory by exercising the right he fought so hard for, the right to vote. Hashtag Remember Me.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, last day of the business week. Jimmy, what have you got? Jimmy, you there? We will connect.
Good afternoon, Ashraf. How are you?
I'm very good indeed. Right, I said last day of the business week, and you hosting the MoneyWeb market update. Go ahead and tell us.
Yes, so today's business news was quite interesting. We got some important data points out of the US, and for the first time in a very long time, hearing bad news out of the US has actually been good for the markets. Let's start with the news that came through. It was the unemployment data, or the jobs numbers from the US. So the unemployment rate actually climbed back by 0.1% up to 3.9%. The non-farms payrolls data, we expected that the United States would have created 238,000 non-farm related jobs in April. Instead, they created 175,000. So that is a significant miss to the downside. And if you remember the month before, it was quite a significant miss to the upside. But what this does point to, more importantly, and this is why the bad news is good news, is that it shows that the United States economy is slowing down. Now, Fed Chair Jerome Powell spoke this week, and his concerns were the fact that the U.S. economy is still showing signs of strength, and so the rate cuts wouldn't happen just yet. This data is the first data point, hopefully of many, that will suggest something very different, that will then allow for the Fed to start to see when we can see rate cuts. So we've gone from 7 rate cut predictions down to just 1, and now following the data points that's come out today, market participants and analysts are now pricing in potential for 2 rate cuts, but obviously 1 data point is still very soon to tell whether or not this is the direction we're going in, but it does point to a much needed positivity, and to that extent the dollar has fallen, US yields, bond yields have fallen as well, and equity markets have rallied on the back of that. Let's look at those equity markets. We'll start with Asian markets. China and Japan haven't reacted today, primarily because Asian markets would be closed at this time, but also because it's Labor Day in China and it's Constitution Day in Japan. So those markets were closed for trade the entire day. European markets were a bit of a mixed bag, depending on which side of that you were looking at. Throughout the day, we saw that most of them were in the green, though, with France up 0.5% and the FTSE and the DAX up 0.4%. US markets are trading in the green. They've received the news of that weaker jobs data quite positively. The Nasdaq's up almost a full 2%, up 1.9% there. S&P up 1% as well. Dow up 1% as well. The South African market closed in the green. If we have a look at some of the movements there, the all share was up 0.5%. The top 40, 0.5% in the green. Resources were down marginally at 0.2% at the close. Financials as well. Industrials picked us up. They were up about 1.2%. The Rand absolutely loving what's happening with the weaker dollar, back below 1850 at 18 Rand 49, gaining almost a full percent there, gaining against the euro and the pound as well, gaining about 0.8% against the pound and 0.6% against the euro at 19.93 against the euro, or back below 20 Rand against the euro and 23.22 against the British pound. Bitcoin's been rallying as well off the back of this news. It's back above $61,000. It was below $60,000 at a stage this week, so it's up about 3% at the moment at 61,400. Ethereum also up around the $3,000 mark. Gold prices also being coming off a little off the back of this news, a little softer at around $2,296 an ounce. Very importantly, Brent crude at $83.42 a barrel, around 1/3% weaker, which is very good for those of us that are importers of fuels such as South Africa. Platinum and palladium prices also showing some signs of life. They're up about 1% in each case, $952 an ounce on palladium and $963 on a platinum. And that just puts us in a much better position going into next week. As I said, the dollar was weak, and if you compare it with other currencies as well, it weakened against the Japanese yen, it weakened against the euro, it weakened against the pound, and this is just a very clear indication from markets that they're very happy with the weaker jobs numbers. We could potentially see those rate cuts as soon as September at the moment, but again, might still be too soon to tell. So next week, as the markets continue to digest this weaker U.S. jobs data, we'll hope and see that we get matching data that suggests a slowdown in the U.S. economy, because that's been the main thing that's kept interest rates and inflation levels up, is the U.S. economy's strength, along with what we see from an inflationary picture, and inflation not coming down has prevented the Fed from cutting. So next week should be a big week, should be a good week for markets to start to dissect what the second half of the year could potentially start to shape up to look like.
Okay. We're having a chat on air and certainly off air as well with Fasih Hassan. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Right. Lots more to come. We continue having this fireside chat, and today it's about interracial marriages, interracial relationships, intercultural relationships, and the pluses and the minuses. So, here's it. Have you been in that relationship yourself? And if so, what has been your experience like? Are you still in it? Are you out of it? Not just for yourself, for your extended families as well. And then if you know others who've been involved in those relationships, again, what did you observe? What were the challenges that they face? Because here's the point: if you're Zulu and you're getting married to a person who's Zulu, I would say for most people, that's the most normal thing to do. But the reality in the world is that you have increasingly cultural or intertribal relationships that are now occurring, and increasingly so in South Africa across the racial line. And then often enough, it's also a case of different religious faiths coming together, and then how do they all fuse into one? So what was it like? If you have to share that, I'd certainly love to know. Here's question, in fact, from Mandla Fasih. So he says, Ashraf and your guest, great discussion there. My granddad and my grandmother were from different races, cultures, and because of that, he was disowned by his family. Okay, that didn't happen to you, I know that, right? Fast forward, my own son is in a mixed relationship. The story of my grandfather and grandmother helped me to embrace and support my son's choice of his life partner. Thank you. And that's from Mandla Buthelezi. Okay, and that's it. That's happened.
Yeah, and I think that's a reality we don't talk enough about, right? It happens a lot, and many people have to go through that isolation or that ostracization, and it's really a difficult one, because there you have to choose between your family and
you don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, exactly.
Because people have, clearly Mandla's been and others have been, right? Here's another voice note. I think the voice note in many ways resonates the conversation we just had about younger people in their role.
Good evening, our host and our listeners on the radio station, guys. It's a lovely Friday. This topic of the interracial stuff, it's a very sensitive topic. On the other hand, it's also a very good conversation to have, because this is not a conversation that we're supposed to just have once off, actually. Basically, if you have to sit still and think about it. You know what I've noticed is a lot of old people, like the lady that's now the radio station have mentioned, the older people are more concerned. Most of the old people have actually brainwashed a lot of people, their children and all these things. That's why they're so concerned about this thing. You know what I've witnessed? There's so many white people that I can see that literally you really want to date with someone out of your race. But because you are so scared of your parents, I've witnessed a Hindu lady that was dating with a colored boy. She left her parents and she said no, which means she was going against religion. To say, listen, here, I'm dead. And you know what, things just worked out. And that is the thing that I would just want to encourage a lot of people. Sometimes you need to do something for yourself. Stop doing stuff to impress other people. You are your own human being. You are going to be the person that are going to be on your own afterwards when your parents and grandparents and people are no longer there. We need to change this thing, guys. Shout out to you, everybody. Much love from Poch, city that never sleeps.
Poch, the city that never sleeps. He said so many things. Fasih, comment on that?
I was actually thinking while we were hearing that, I was actually doing henna or mendi on my hand this most recent Eid, and the person who was applying it, she was saying, because now it's like public knowledge, right? Yeah. She was like, "You're so brave." You're so brave for marrying the person that you love. And after a bit of prompting, because I was like, well, why, For her, it was a different situation, also Muslim person, but he had been married before with a child. And this was like a very scandalous thing.
Yeah.
And I'm even listening to this voice note thinking, well, why are these things scandalous? It's scandalous because of exactly what was said, that we were socialized in an environment where it was off. I mean, the reality is we're all human beings, right? And these things, I mean, we all know it from a sociological, anthropological idea that race is created, right? We created that as human beings. And it's proving that point. But let me also say this. It's not an easy thing when you have to go up against your family. And I'm very lucky I didn't have that experience. But my heart really does go out to people who have to choose, because it's a difficult thing, especially when religion is involved. Because it becomes, people think it's a black and a white situation, right? But often it's in the gray areas that you have to navigate. And there's human experience there, there's human emotion.
Absolutely.
So we can't discount that, but we also have to create environments where it is normalized and where it's celebrated,
And there's no template, because I mean, you made the point as well that so you met Kule. Obviously, the attraction is obvious. That's why you guys are married, right? So that's a given. But you then found that you're part of the Muslim faith, and then he was drawn to the Muslim faith, and he embraced the faith, I think, 6 months or so before you got married?
Yeah, but it's interesting, and this is something people don't know this actually. He wanted to convert long before that.
Okay.
And I was actually at a point where I was like, hold on, you can't be doing this for me. You actually have to ask yourself the question where if, God forbid or whatever, we don't work out, you need to still be a Muslim, because this is between you and and God. And I think that was part of the delay. And it got to a point where he's like, no, this is what I want. This almost got nothing to do with you now. I found a peace in it. So I wanted to share that because a lot of people think that it was for me, and I think that that's the wrong basis of what we're trying to create. We really need to understand we are our own people, and even Kule and I have our own identities. We're very, very fiercely independent people.
As it should be.
Yes, but we also have that common ground, and I think that common ground is where we also need to build on.
And if you just tuned in late, just to make the point that Fasia and I are related, so I was the MC at that wedding in December sometime, just so that you get that. But I mean, I certainly saw him performing what is called the dhikr, the chanting of words of praise to God or to Allah in the Islamic faith, and he was chanting with gusto. I mean, I'm like, this guy's really into this thing.
Yeah, he actually likens it to some part of growing up. I think in evangelical churches, that singing thing is really important. I mean, I went to a Catholic school, so there was singing, but maybe not as spicy as one would have liked. But what was really fascinating about it is we had a different group. So we didn't just do it in Arabic, which is like the language that the Quran is in. We did it in a multitude of South African languages. We had Zulu, we had Xhosa, we had Sesotho. And I think when we did that, it really removed a lot of those barriers. Even my mother-in-law, who interestingly enough is American, she was like tears streaming down her face. This is not a South African.
And your father-in-law was sitting next to me, so I know what he was thinking. Yeah.
And for me, that was just a moment where we all connected, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of class group or how we were brought up, and there was that common form.
Yeah, there certainly was. But, were there other challenges? And there's some other questions and comments from a whole range of people. People have opinions, so we'll talk about that. In fact, there's a question about faith to Fasia, which I'll ask after this.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
EFC is live this Thursday. Two grappling wizards will battle it out for the vacant welterweight title at EFC 113 as Gelson Souza and Zakir Banat fight it out for championship glory. Plus, Faiz Jacobs is out for revenge against the great Sylvester Chifumbu for #1 contendership. EFC 113 live this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel on DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Certainly are connected to the National Pulse, and in this case, Fasia and Kule are very connected. So she's made the point, she's South African of black or Indian origin, so Muslim, and her husband is Muslim now, but he comes from a Zulu background, if I got that right. Okay.
Half Zulu, half Tsonga, yeah.
Okay, there we are. Dad lives in the USA, if I've got that right. Okay, but anyway, they're a couple. They're married, and we're talking therefore about relationships and the nuances and the challenges and the great things that happens when you come together. So here's a question, Frasia, from someone saying, considering your point about faith, so you were drawn to each other and then fully embraced the Islamic faith. But what would happen if it did not?
I think it would have been very difficult, especially for my extended community and family. You know, one thing, I grew up in a home of activism and activists, and for them race was never really like going to be a challenge. But I think in terms of how you raise kids and value systems, not to say that there aren't commonalities, there most certainly are amongst different religious followings. But I think it would be very difficult for the extended community to have accepted it. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Also because there's certain sort of levels that are difficult for us to broach. And even though it was a topic of discussion and gossip, me marrying out of the community, I don't know if they would have been as open-minded or as welcoming of Kule, if I'm being honest, if he didn't make the effort, you know?
Well, and I think it's true. I mean, if what would you have done? I mean, forget the family now. Assuming that he remained a Christian and you're Muslim in practical terms, how do you play that out?
He was never like a fully, the kind of person who goes to church often, all of that. So I don't think it would have been a major crisis. And, like you said, what attracts you to a person isn't their religion. It's who they are as people. That thing that makes them who they are. So I think in the long run, actually, we probably would have remained together and, it's just maybe I wouldn't have gotten married recently. Maybe it would have been a little bit in the future. So I don't think that would have made a huge crisis situation. But I do think that people who are of good character and who want to create the kind of life that you do, I think that's enough for us to build a life, especially when it comes to children and finances. I know those are the two things.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, like
but
my
you also
parents
made your faith is important to you.
And for me, it is a very important thing. And I will say this, right? Even if he didn't, I wouldn't have stopped being Muslim. For me, that was never a conversation. It was never a negotiation. I am a Muslim. I'm a practicing Muslim. I will always be a practicing Muslim. So for me, it is what it is. That was never going to change on my part.
Okay, fascinating. Right, here's another. By the way, so what about him? What about Kule and him becoming a Muslim? What was his family's response?
I think so. His parents, especially his dad's side, were actually very welcoming. His dad works, in the World Bank, so there's a lot of cosmopolitan interaction, that kind of stuff. But I think there were questions, as is normal, by the way. I don't think it's incorrect to have questions. My own family had questions. I mean, my parents, this thing of the money, the finances, and the kids, those are the two things like, have you spoken about these? What are your common grounds? So there were questions. But in all honesty, his family's been very good. And I think that's also a testament to the South African story. We come from a deeply violent history based on race, both colonial and apartheid. And to their credit, they were like, we're not going to fall into these traps that were created for us.
And without talking about politics, because that's not the intention, but you both are in the political space. Right?
Yeah, a little bit different. I'm in an elected office, which was never the plan, frankly speaking, for him to be involved. But I think when you have an activist husband or wife or spouse or whatever it is, you will always be drawn to whether it's civil society or the public sector, because South Africa is in deep crisis and we need our best people at the helm of it.
So he's in the office of the president.
He's in the office of the president. He's one of the few masochistic people who get 3-4 hours of sleep a day trying to solve the problems in this country.
All right, goodness, time's running out. We've got like 4 minutes to go. Here's a voice note on interracial relationships and class issues. Yeah.
Hi, Ashraf. I just want to throw something here for thought. Right, with this interracial dating or marriages. I have never in my life read or seen or heard about a poor black guy or an average black guy that is married to a rich white woman or a rich Indian woman. Right? I've never read about it. And I want to put it out there. However, I have though saw a rich black guy married to a poor white person or Indian or Chinese. If you take example Tiger Woods, he married a nanny, and there's a lot of examples like that. So black guys, they always marry down when they marry out of their race. And I will take it further and say they only get the white girls that white men don't want.
Okay, he's saying a lot of things. He should have called in, actually.
Yeah.
You want to comment on that?
I think a lot of people think this idea that, and you know, every now and again you'll post something on X or on Instagram, and then you'll get these random people commenting, oh, well, you know, Fisia or Kule or whatever, actually any person for that matter, couldn't get someone in their own community. That's why they move.
Okay.
And I worry about that because there's a genuine argument about class here, which I think is important, and we need another whole show to talk about it because that certainly exists. But I think that it's almost like we need to overly justify, and I don't mean this as the couple, I mean this as society. We need to make sense of it. Why is this happening? It must be because he has money. It must be because she's poor. It must be because she's this or that, you know?
So there can't be simply a reason that they actually are deeply attracted to each other. That's not a good enough reason.
Which I wonder, because that maybe is the most threatening to the societal status quo, right? That we can actually just overcome some of those barriers and build what we really want to be a new South Africa. Because we talked about it, but did we really implement it? And I think there's a deep level of unpacking we need to do there. And that's not to say it doesn't happen. Of course it does. But I think there's a much broader conversation that we need to have about why we need to, pull people down.
Right, we've got about a minute and a bit to go. We're going to wrap up pretty shortly, but maybe the next call is Ali. You can say hi to him.
Hi, Ali. Can you hear us?
Hi, my dear sister. You know, I was at the government offices, and there's this lady, one with an albino kid, another with a white Afrikaner girl with a young child. And these children were playing smart. When they were supposed to go, they fought their parents. They wanted to continue playing, say bye-bye to their mothers. It was fascinating that they see themselves as human beings, not as color.
Yeah, well, there you are. I mean, and that's the essence of it all, right? Isn't it? Yeah. Okay, thanks for that. Thanks for that call, Ali. We've got about a minute to go. But perhaps just in the minute that we have, any other nuances or challenges that have come up in the build up to the wedding and beyond that you can relate, because then we can relate to it.
I think families go mad around weddings, so we must always keep that as a caveat. But let me say this in closing, Ashraf, that the truth is we want to create, apart from this normalcy, we want to inspire other young people and other people who are not only in love but who are stuck in a particular label or in a particular box, and those boxes really should be opened up. And we don't mean this only in terms of racial elements. I really want us to be in a South Africa where young people can self-determine. And self-determine is not only economic, it's about really choosing what your future looks like. So even though it's nice to talk about it now, I would like to get to a point where it's so normal. Like, how do we support each other?
Why are you even fussing about it?
Why are we even fussing about it?
Okay, well, we'll see. Well, all the fuss was your Twitter handle before.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully it will come back.
But now he's just there. It could be honourable if you get into Parliament beyond May 29th. But yeah, it's been great chatting, having you here as part of this fireside chat. I think it's been informative. Absolutely.
No, it's been interesting for me as well. Thanks to all of our listeners who also sent in voice notes and calls. And I think, this can be a conversation we can carry on.
Absolutely. Well, they can tweet out. I mean, there's so many others. I can't play them all, unfortunately. But you can certainly tweet out and tag me, Fasia Hassan, as well as SFM Radio, all of us for the day. But I'll be back, Monday, because today is Friday, which means it is time to genuinely have that fireside chat. Good evening and goodbye from the rest of the team. It's 6 o'clock. Let's get the news with Greg.
Thank you again, Ashraf. Deadline extended for special votes, and China launches a rocket to the moon. Good evening.